Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. My name is Keith Cutrone, and if you didn't know that, I don't really know how you found this podcast. I'm not sure what you're doing here, but I'm sure glad that you are here, and I hope you are too. I hope you enjoy what we have recorded for you today. I'm joined today by my good friend Matt Lovato. Matt Lovato is an expert in personal fitness, group fitness. He is well-versed in martial arts. He's a student of the game with mixed martial arts as well. We have a great breakdown of some fights in today's discussion. But I think what we mostly focus on, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this, is a lot of obscure media coverage. We're going to talk about some weird movies that we enjoy, weird movies we didn't necessarily enjoy, and we just kind of have a lot of fun discussing a lot of different topics. If you guys enjoy it today, and if you don't enjoy it, I'd love to get some feedback from you. If you could leave me some comments, send me some messages, let me know what you thought, let me know what we could have done better, let me know what you enjoyed. My Instagram, you can follow my training, my upcoming fights, what's going on with me is at Bone Cutrone, BoneCutrone. That'll give you links to my fighter fan page, which will have further information. If you want to follow Matt Lovato on his fitness page, you can see him on ML_intrinsic resistance. And for some fun media-related things where he reviews everything from movies to anime to comic books to anything you can imagine, check out Matt Reviews Media on Instagram, MATT Reviews Media. So, without further ado, enjoy the show.
Turns all your bad feelings into good feelings. It's a nightmare.
An Uzi? I'm not from South Central Los fucking Angeles. I didn't come here to shoot 20 black 10-year-olds in a fucking driveway. I want a normal gun for a normal person.
Whatever you're reaching for better be a sandwich, because you're gonna have to eat it.
You thought he was white before? You should see that sucking now.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand.
All right. Testing the sound. Good. We're back on. Live on the air. This is Keith Cutrone and Matt Lovato. Our camera has already gone out, so we're having technical difficulties today. Live from my mother's living room.
To be expected on the first podcast.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
technical difficulties.
Yeah, I definitely saw that coming, but thank you for joining us today. If you are in fact joining us, this is our first podcast. I don't even know if this is going to get distributed, but
well, before we were started recording before this, and we were talking about as soon as we sat down here, Keith gave me a copy of The Watchmen.
Let's see, are we back on? We have it's working now. So anyways, you were saying, Matt, please go ahead.
All right, so I let Keith borrow this copy of The Watchmen like 10 years ago, and we were talking about how, he first saw The Watchmen on the big screen movie, and he was talking about how, it obviously was not as impressive as the graphic novel, because
it was just overall, like, I had these expectations for it. I saw this really exciting action superhero movie that was coming out, and I really wanted to see that. And what I saw was a 3-hour-long dramatic experience into like the depths of human suffering, and it was not what I expected.
And that's kind of, in a way, that's kind of like what the graphic novel is, but the material is way more dense. They paint like a way better picture of the characters and
exactly. Like I feel like when you're in the graphic novel, you get a better idea of like knowing what you're getting. It was, I mean, it's an Alan Moore book. Like that's a genius at work who's drawing you this. Who's drawing you this emotion, this feeling. Like it draws you in better than the movie possibly could.
Yes, and it's a really cool thing that he does that you don't get in the movie is that in between each chapter of the book, you get like a background on each character. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're getting this this weird mix of like old like newspaper clippings and like psychiatric like profiles of these people, and so by the end of it, you really feel like you know the characters. Yeah, you get really woven into the story a lot more than the movie does, and it's like not to discredit the movie at all. I really actually now that I've read the book, I can appreciate the movie way more. It was well done. It was well adapted in a lot of ways, but I feel like as a standalone thing, the movie is hard to appreciate. The Watchmen would have been more well suited as a like HBO miniseries or something like that. That would have been great. Or like Netflix for one of its like superhero movie series. I could see them doing that in the future. Yeah. It would be, it would be expensive, but I could see them doing that. I mean, does it be any more expensive than any of the other shit they do? Yeah, they've got a lot of money. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be any more expensive than the Ridiculous Six. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they've got time. It would certainly not be that big of a fucking waste of time. Yeah. Well, speaking of ridiculous movies, and we're gonna take a hard left turn. Let's jump right into this. We're gonna take a hard left turn here. Because when we're talking about The Watchmen, it's probably like my favorite piece of media ever. It's up there. Yeah, but however, last night, me and Keith both decided to watch probably one of the worst or best pieces of media we've ever seen, called Never Back Down 2, a ridiculous martial arts movie released in 2011. Let's reinstate the focal point of that. Never Back Down 2. Not 1. Not 1. As if 1 wasn't ridiculous enough. If you have not seen Never Back Down 1, also ridiculous. Especially, now to your everyday person, you might think, okay, this is just kind of your run-of-the-mill martial arts silly movie. It is even sillier to somebody like Keith because Keith has actually fought in a cage a lot of times. It's really like my sister was watching with me and she's like, is this fucking hard for you to watch? And I was like, it's pretty brutal, man. Like, it is. Okay, so this movie is so ridiculous that last night when I was watching it, I had to take notes because literally every 30 seconds there was something so insanely stupid that would happen that I was running out of data in my brain. I was like, there's no way I'm going to remember all of these things. So let's just start with the basic premise, right? The main protagonist in the movie. He is a former, he's a college wrestler. He was a high school wrestler. He was an all-state high school wrestler. Right, so this kid's... And he's like first year in college and... freshman college. This kid's a badass, all right? Okay, the basic premise of this story is this kid goes to college and he's ashamed because his father left his mother for another man. So he is not happy about this. That's a very non-2018 premise too. Like we're beyond that. Clearly, this isn't a very progressive story. Okay, so the movie opens actually with a cage fight. Now, within the first minute of this cage fight, there is a chest punch, which I thought. Well, I don't know if you caught that. You know what? I'm going to throw this out there. When I fought Joey Davis, he punched me in the chest. Okay, wait a minute. All right, no. This is interesting. Yeah. This is interesting because When I saw the chest punch, I was like, that is horribly inaccurate. Whoever gets chest punched. Little did I know.
Dude, that shit fucked me up for
Keith
months.
has been chest punched, and apparently getting chest punched is really fucking painful.
I didn't feel it at the time. I saw it on the video after the fight, and I was like, dude, that's why my rib feels like it's about to burst out of my fucking bed.
This is really interesting. So now my mind is blown. Because I'm over here thinking that was one of the most inaccurate, but turns out chest punch is a legit
chest punch
technique.
is real. The chest punch is real.
This next one, I know definitely is not a legit technique. When a guy power bombs the other guy, WWE style, full blown head between the crotch, flips him over his head, and power bombs him.
Straight up power
Now
bombs.
there have been power bombs in MMA before. You had Rampage Jackson power bombing.
Arona,
that's the most famous one.
Yeah, that's a classic.
And I know there's other examples, but that's like the big one.
That was the one that was like most like a power bomb, most effectively implemented.
Yeah,
but the actual legit like legs over the shoulders,
right? I don't think. Yeah, has that ever
face
happened?
In the crotch.
Yeah, I don't think. Now I have seen.
Wes Sims did that to somebody.
Okay,
Wes Sims.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember
he
that.
had somebody in like guard, I think, and then he hiked him up and threw him over his shoulders.
Yeah,
and bam,
I remember that. Now, and there has been recently more.
But that one, Wes Sims kind of did it like. He didn't like slam the shit out of him. He just kind of like picked him up and
whereas
dropped
Rampage's
him,
was like a full like violent slam.
Like
that was a KO.
Yeah,
that was like a Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Now there has been more pro wrestling moves popping up in MMA recently. I've seen some really funny ones pop up on like Middle Easy, where they had one where the guy got the other guy in a Walls of Jericho, the Boston Crab, and he actually submitted the guy with the Walls of Jericho.
No shit. My coach has been like doing a lot of leg lock stuff, and like Walls of Jericho has been coming up. Boston Crab's kind of been coming up.
That's like an old school move.
It is. That's like old. I mean, that is old school catch wrestling.
If you can get somebody, the problem with the Boston Crab, the problem with a lot of pro wrestling moves, submissions in particular, is they actually do work if you can get them. They're totally. Just insanely difficult to get on somebody.
Well, that was like that was what a lot of people don't know is that catch wrestling and professional wrestling originated in the same place.
Right.
They branched off in different directions because professional wrestling was an avenue to display techniques.
Right.
And it was more fanfare and more aggressive displays. They were like meant to be more showful and boastful. Catch wrestling, catch as catch can wrestling is the original name of it. They were actually competing. They were going like, can I pull this off? Well, and that's where they branched off in different directions.
Right. And in the beginning, wasn't it like a lot of the guys were actually. There was guys who, like a lot of the guys who were really good or famous, like pro wrestlers in the beginning, like Bruno Sammartino and Vern Gagne and Gotch and some of these guys. They were actual legit badasses. They did both.
Yeah.
And then
the
idea, was that when they started fixing these matches and determining the outcome prior to the match, they would get paid larger sums of money in order to do that or something along those lines. So that's kind of why they would do both, is because it was a way of making more money.
It makes sense. I mean, imagine if there was a league of MMA where we have MMA fighters and where we have the fighters fighting in what we have as like the UFC, the MMA competition, and then there was like this alternate there's like this alternate league that was just fighters showing like all this shit that they can do. It's like, if this guy wasn't stopping me from doing this, guess what? I could do this fucking triple spin kick off the cage and like come down and knock his fucking head off. Like,
it's almost comparable in a way to when fighters will have like an open workout and they'll kind of just demo their skill set. Right,
exactly. Like who was that girl who just fought Cyborg? I was seeing all those videos of her doing like spin kicks.
What was her name? Yeah, I know.
Katya or some shit.
She got a really hard name to pronounce. Katsunaya.
Is that
I think that was it. Yeah.
She I mean, I don't want to.
That was just sad.
I don't want to talk shit on anybody live on the air, but like, I was watching her do these fucking demo shit, and it was like she did a fucking step through spinning hook kick, and I was like, ooh. She like didn't even hit the pad right. It was like her calf hits the pad. I was like, fascinating.
That was truly like a lamb going to the slaughter.
Yeah,
it was
for
really
sure.
fucking sad.
I mean,
But-
first of all, no one has any business in there with Cyborg. I don't think so.
Now, I may disagree with you slightly on that because
Okay.
I do think that the Amanda Nunez matchup is interesting.
No, you're
I
right.
think
That holds some water. For
Yeah.
sure.
Now, I think that if those two fight, I think that Cyborg, if she beats her, it's basically just going to be through just sheer fucking dominance. Like she's just physically more imposing.
Right.
However, I think Amanda Nunez is a lot more technical with her striking. She's faster. And I actually think that Amanda Nunez, this might sound crazy, I think she almost like hits harder. Because I think when Amanda Nunez, when she lands, it's a more like violent impact. Whereas Cyborg, if you really look at it, like she hasn't had very many like really violent like KOs in the UFC. It's mostly like TKOs due to like accumulation of strikes.
I don't think Cyborg hits super hard. I see the way Cyborg hits. Cyborg hits like a heavily muscled person.
Right. She doesn't have a lot of snap on her punches.
She's tense and she's solid. And it's really hard to stop her from hitting you, even when you're blocking, because she's so fucking strong.
Right.
But she doesn't hit with that grace and fluidity that a really well tuned striker does.
Right.
I would definitely give the edge in striking to Amanda Nunez. Like you can just see She has more of like a striker build where she's not like super shredded.
Definitely.
She's got like a little bit of that looseness to her body.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand too. They kind of automatically assume that the more shredded you are and the more in shape you're going to be and all these type of things.
Yeah.
But they don't realize the muscle is like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And if it's too tight and if it's too tense, you're going to lack a certain amount of that rubber band effect, that snapback.
There's like I tell people,
if you look at the best strikers, you know, like Anderson Silva, he always had a little flab on him. If you look at like Fedor, not that he was like the best like kickboxing wise, but he always had those really quick reflexes where he would just snap right into it. He
was very sharp with his movements. He landed everything where he wanted to land it. His timing was on point, and a lot of that came from him not being too wound up. His body was loose and effective.
Before we get too off topic here, after that little tangent, we want to get back to Never Back Down too, because this is clearly very important.
Oh, this is definitely this is big stuff.
So we left off. We were talking about the power bomb. Okay, power bomb happens. The other thing I want to address here...
Powerbomb happens, Wes Sims and Rampage. That's our two.
The other thing I want to address here is Todd Duffy is in this movie.
Todd Duffy was golden.
He's a current UFC fighter.
Is he current?
He's current. He had some issues with... he had some kind of it was really sad, actually. He had some kind of a disorder of some kind. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was something where like his muscle would atrophy or...
I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah, something like that. Look it up if you guys want to. But anyways, you know, although I feel bad for Todd Duffy in those circumstances, he's got no business being an actor. Let's be honest.
That was the worst acting I've ever seen.
He's got the charisma. You know those old TV dinners that look like they're from 1970s, and you look at them and they just depress you,
and they're still in,
They've never changed the packaging,
like the banquet dinners or something. Like
and they're like brown and orange, and they just have this weird lighting, and that's
red and yellow.
That is what when I watch Todd Duffy act, that's what that does to me psychologically. It takes me back to one of those TV dinners. It's just horrible. There's no emotion behind any line that he says.
My favorite part was when the guy's like, so you're my new head of security. How's $400 a night sound? And he's just like rolls his eyes like, I guess, but you gotta
fire my mom. His mom is a stripper in the movie, guys. So he's not into that, obviously.
Clearly. No, and then the other guy is like, I wish my mom worked here.
Okay, which brings me to my next point. There is a character in this movie who is quite possibly the most ridiculous movie character I've ever seen. So he starts out...
Oh no, we loved this guy. He was like our favorite.
He is a emo kid who's getting bullied. However,
by Mexican gangsters.
Now wait a minute.
For some reason.
I made sure to take note of this because this is a huge issue I have with movies. I've seen this shit a lot lately. not just Mexican gangsters. He was getting bullied by a 3-man gang that consisted of a black dude, a Mexican dude, and a white dude. Yeah. Now, why movies keep perpetuating this ridiculous idea that street gangs are multicultural is absolutely absurd.
Right. No, you're right.
Have you ever seen a gang where it's a white guy, a Mexican guy, a black guy? You may as well throw a Chinese guy in there. There is no such thing. There might be out there somewhere, but that would be more of like a social justice group or something.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
That would
a gang.
be more. Yeah, that would be like a college group who was fighting for social
could tell
equality.
it's almost like because I was just watching a movie the other day where they had the same thing. It was 21 Jump Street, which is a comedy.
Right,
and
right.
at the beginning of the movie, they bust this gang, and it's same thing. It's like a black dude, a Mexican dude, and a white guy.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like,
what was it? The 1%ers or
yeah.
something like that?
And he's like, those guys are 1%ers. But I'm watching it. And
well, you
I'm
know
like,
what? Bike gangs are a little different though.
They are a little different.
Gangs,
I agree.
They have more of an exclusivity where it's not really
true.
Doesn't have anything to do with race.
Right.
They're just
that's
like,
true. That's true.
If you're a fucking maniac, you're a maniac, and you're in.
You can come in the gang.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, but it does seem like it's a reoccurring theme in movies where they do tend to do that. It's almost like they have somebody on set who's like their PR person.
For sure.
And they're like, we got to make sure this gang, we can't be stereotyping these people. We got to make sure this gang is multicultural. You know? Which is just always so silly looking to me.
Well, it doesn't make any sense because most of the time there's a legit reason. Like, gangs usually form in cultural enclaves that are impoverished to a degree. There's some sort of class discrepancy there, and there's a reason why people come together and create groups of violence. Right. Typically, those cultural enclaves have the same races in them. That's what a cultural enclave is. It's a group of people who have been hobbled together because of their ethnicity.
Right.
And a lot of the time that spawns gangs. It's really rare that they just grab a white guy hey bro, why don't you be part of this?
Well, okay, so this ridiculous gang that is bullying this emo character. There's this emo comic book geek in the movie, which that's where this movie is also ridiculous. Like, it just totally latches onto some very like 1980s movie kind of cliches. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where this girl comes in and she's asking the comic book geek or she's trading in some comics to the comic geek, and then he asks her on a date and she's like, yeah, as if, dork. And it's like, in 2011, like, I don't think being a comic geek is necessarily as dorky as it once was. It's pretty common now.
I think it's
pretty widely accepted.
It's more
pretty
about
mainstream.
Yeah, it's more about presentation. This
right.
is how you are. Like,
now, however,
we're all comic book dorks.
If we're going off of presentation, this character absolutely deserved to get shot down because his hair is ridiculous.
Oh, dude, his wig.
Now, let me describe to you guys what this guy looks like.
Yeah.
He looks like a pretty good college wrestler because the kid's got a neck on him.
Oh,
he's got a neck.
No, they couldn't hide the fact that they grabbed an athlete and dolled him up to be this character.
And then they just tossed the emo wig on him. That looks insane. I mean, it just looks horrible. You could tell it's a wig. So he kind of he morphs as the movie goes on from this like dorky emo kid.
He was very repressed and very like helpless, getting beaten up by people. And I think I see where you're going with it. Please continue.
He morphs from this dorky emo kid who's, like Keith said, very repressed, very sad, lonely. And then he starts to develop some confidence when he starts to learn martial arts. However, after developing this confidence, he also develops a psychotic nature.
Yeah. He becomes more malicious.
Yeah, he becomes very malicious.
He's like a Jedi that's been seduced by the dark side.
Yes. He turns to the dark side.
I want to make a side note real quick while we're on this guy right now. So when the stud college wrestler and the pro boxer guy are sent to they're sent to Michael J. White's camp and to train with him. he goes, I don't just take on anybody. He's got 2 people training with him. The emo kid and Todd Duffy. It's like, I don't train just anybody, except that guy.
Now, what I'm wondering is before the other 2 guys got there, how did Todd Duffy and the little emo kid, how did those 2 work out as sparring partners? Because Todd Duffy had to have just been beating the shit out of this kid for forever.
That guy was probably so stoked to have 2 more people there.
Right?
Like, my God.
Because Todd Duffy, number one, is so much fucking bigger than any of the other characters in the movie. And he's competing in the same tournament as them at the end of the movie, which is ridiculous.
There was no other heavyweights in that movie except
Michael
Duffy.
J. White, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. He's just super jacked. So I don't know what he weighs. He probably walks at like 210, 215.
He's probably like a light heavy at most. I think he's like 5'9" or something.
Yeah, he's not very tall. But speaking of which, Michael J. White is bodied up. That dude is a physical specimen.
Dude's a freak.
He is a freak. I don't know how old he was when they filmed that movie. He was probably like early 40s, maybe. He's got to be pushing 50 now. He's been around for a while.
He could be 65. Like
he's up
crack,
there,
man. Like
and when Michael J. White kicks a bag in this movie, I mean, pretty much everything Michael J. White does in this movie, you realize pretty quickly that this guy is a legitimate badass.
He's a real martial artist.
Yeah.
Did you see him on the set of Blood and Bone teaching Kimbo Slice how to throw a punch?
I did. Yeah,
it was adorable. I loved it.
It was super cool.
Yeah.
And
he's like telling him what was his stoplight metaphor? He was like, you see it move, then your brain goes, oh yeah, that's coming. He's like a super nerdy like martial arts guy.
He
it's
is.
Fucking
and
dope.
He was talking about how when you throw a punch, how like a lot of boxers will kind of roll their shoulder and like telegraph it. And he had a really interesting thing where he was talking about not telegraphing.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
He was talking about he was talking about the electrical impulses in your brain, how it responds to tell signals. He's like, if you see the punch coming straight in and it just gets wider slowly, then your brain doesn't recognize that. If you see the fist move, if you see the shoulder roll over, then your brain recognizes that. It's like seeing a light go from green to red. It goes pop, and then you recognize it. But if you just pop, if you come in a straight line and pop, then your line of sight only sees that fist go a little bit bigger, then you're hit in the face.
Right.
Your registry doesn't catch it until it's too late.
Yeah, so Michael J. White, he's a badass. He's he's when I first started watching this movie and I saw how badass he was, and I started remembering Spawn from when I was a little kid.
Oh, it's god awful. Don't get me.
It's horrible. But then I started to ask, if Michael J. White is one of those actors where I'd always ask myself, how come this guy never blew up? He should have been like the next big action star. Then I saw Never Back Down 2, and then I was like, oh, that's right. He's also a horrible actor. Which I still love Michael J. White. Like, I think he would be perfect if you threw him like in the Expendables or roles that are kind of meant to be ridiculous. But let's be honest, he's not winning any Oscars anytime soon. He's just a badass dude who's
a legit badass.
A legit badass. A real, not a Hollywood badass, a real badass.
Yeah. Let me see.
So, well, we've also got some other notes that I got.
Oh
here.
yeah, let's hit these. We got to get through.
We got to get through these notes. Yeah. We're about halfway through here. This movie, it looked like it was shot for about a quarter of the budget of Never Back Down 1. It was clearly,
which was already a movie that looked like it was like.
But you know, Never Back Down 1, I think did have it was released in theaters, right?
Yeah. Never Back Down 1 was a legitimate release. It was an expensive movie. It had Jimon Hunsu, or how do you pronounce his name?
Digimon.
I always say Digimon. I always call him Digimon.
Yeah, he's a big actor, and it was riding that wave. It was like 07 or 08 when it came out. So this was when the MMA was like really peaking in popularity.
I do have a comment about that actually that I was mentioning when we were watching this last night. Was MMA is still such a new sport to mainstream that movies are still being released where people are like, like our MMA sports movies, first of all, we're yet to get like a really good one. Maybe like Warrior is like the best one we've had.
Warrior would be the closest thing to it, but even I've had people that I've talked to who've tried to tell me, they're like, yeah, man, Warrior is so realistic. I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
Warrior. It's like, it's more realistic than some of the other shit that you've watched, but it's still ridiculously stupid and like, you know, it's not.
But that's probably like the best that we've gotten. But we're still getting a lot of media where most of our media relating to MMA is like what's this MMA stuff? What?
Right? Yeah.
You guys do UFC? We gotta work on some Muay Thai and some jits.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
It's like it's still everything's really fresh, and most of the introductory, like most of like the movies, TV shows, things that like involve MMA, it's about people like finding out that MMA is even a thing. Like, whoa,
which is a really weird. I kind of caught that too when we were watching this movie last night. Was that, you know, it's like UFC is pretty mainstream now. Like everybody knows a Ronda Rousey, a Conor McGregor. I guess maybe for us, just sometimes we've been into it for so long, we kind of forget how uneducated people on the outside can be.
Right.
Might be a little bit of it.
I've been watching old UFC fights was literally how I got into martial arts in the first place. I was fucking 4 years old. My dad's showing me VHSs of Frank Shamrock
and Hoist Gracie.
Yeah, like,
same thing.
All that shit, and I was just like, oh, that's awesome. That's like blood sport for real. I want to do that.
And it's the fascinating thing about it, and the thing that these movies always get wrong, is that real fighting. Don't get me wrong; it's very exciting. And you have some great fights. But a lot of times when you get down to the nitty-gritty in real fighting, it's not a back and forth punching each other in the face. It almost always ends up on the ground. Mm-hmm. It slows down considerably. It's not what they paint it in these movies. And it's like when you're watching these...
Where everybody's Superman punching each other
back
back
and forth, spinning back kicking each other.
Oh,
I like how...
crazy, dude.
Here's another ridiculous thing about this fucking movie. They have a guy who's a boxer character. He's a badass boxer. He somehow, like, over the course of a month, transforms into the most amazing capoeira kicker you've ever seen in your life. And if you're not familiar with capoeira, it's Brazilian, right? Is it Brazilian?
It's a Brazilian martial art.
Right.
It's very beautiful. It's very
like
ineffective in one-on-one. Like it's not the thing about capoeira is don't quote me on this. I didn't learn this in a college class. I'm not getting this from a textbook. This is hearsay. But from what I understand about capoeira is it was originated by slaves in Brazil way long ago who were not allowed to
practice
they weren't allowed to practice martial arts. They weren't allowed to practice fighting. They weren't allowed to fight with each other.
Right.
They weren't allowed to have weapons. So what they did was they would dance.
Yeah.
But they developed...
They disguised it as a dance.
They developed a fighting system that they could practice and develop that looked like they were just dancing.
Right.
And it is fascinating and mesmerizing and beautiful, and it has its purpose, but it doesn't really make any sense in an MMA fight.
Yeah, well, I can't even... Like, can you even imagine, like... The first, if they were just like slaves who were doing it to disguise, pretending it was a dance, would they just kind of be like practicing their movements, and then their like slave owner would walk by and they'd kick his fucking head off, and then they'd be like, I don't know what happened, man. I was just practicing my capoeira dance and I fucking knocked out my slave owner, and then everybody escaped.
I had a knife in my foot. And
I wasn't planning on it. Like, I mean, it's
oops, my bad.
But
I don't know. Hey. Maybe they were just waiting for that day. They were gonna have the revolution. They were just gonna guess what, everybody? We got helicopter kicks coming your way all fucking day. Like there's just a field of guys on their hands just kicking the shit out of all these slave owners.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Well, so this boxing character in the movie, over the course of like a month, he goes from not being able to throw a roundhouse to being the most amazing capoeira guy you've ever seen.
Let's also point out, like, capoeira is profoundly difficult. Like, that is not...
You have to have a pretty high level... Like, if you're just, like, an average dude who... Like, you have to be born with a pretty high level of athleticism to get good at that martial art.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just gonna be a kind of a regular Joe Schmo and get good at capoeira. It's you gotta have the genetics for that. So yeah, this character gets really good at it, the boxing character.
Yeah, for some reason they decide, like, we're not going to teach this boxing guy how to grapple. We're just going to teach him how to do capoeira.
Which is, yeah, that's another ridiculous thing. Okay, that's another thing the movie got wrong, was that if you were to walk into a regular martial arts gym, if you had a boxer, what's the first thing you're going to teach him? Takedown defense.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. There's no question. Yet, the first thing the Michael J. White sensei character starts teaching him is more variations of striking, which is, like, totally stupid.
It's nonsense.
So, another stupid thing from the film. Also, there's another extremely ridiculous scene in this movie where the boxing character, he's got, like, a loose, some retina, partially detached retina in his eye, and he goes to the doctor. And this is 2011 this movie takes place in, and this boxer has never heard of MMA apparently, because he's walking out of the office and there's a receptionist there. And the receptionist is watching a video of this MMA competition online called The Beatdown.
Oh, The Beatdown.
And she goes, "Oh my God, girl, these guys are so hot. They could have me any day of the week. Ground and pound, baby." This is what she actually says in the movie, which was the most...
I was probably getting a drink or something. I don't remember that. That's so fucking funny.
This boxing character, that's all the motivation he needs to start taking up MMA. As soon as he hears this receptionist talking about getting grounded and pounded,
you say.
He found his new career.
Yeah.
So another ridiculous story point. Now, there was one single moment of this movie that could be easily missed if you're not paying close attention, but it was probably the single most ridiculous moment of the entire movie. The emo kid in the movie has this ridiculous wig that he's wearing, and he decides to start shaving his head. Starts shaving his head, and as he's shaving his head, if you look closely, he has a photograph of Michael J. White shirtless hanging up on his mirror.
We pointed that out when we were watching it. We were dying.
And I saw
He's just like in fight stance,
and he's in fight stance. Now, I guess the more savvy moviegoer in me should have recognized that and said, "Oh, that is this filmmaker's brilliant way of giving you a tell that this kid is crazy." However, it just looked like a really vaguely kind of sexual fixation that this little emo kid...
It was a reference to this guy's unhealthy obsession with his sensei.
Yes, with his sensei. And there's just... If you guys haven't seen this movie, go and watch it. I mean, we barely even scratched the surface. If you really... We could probably sit here for 12 hours just analyzing every
this thing down.
Little ridiculous detail within this movie. That's just a little bit of it. Also, if you haven't seen Never Back Down 1, that's also a equally ridiculous movie. Not quite as bad as Never Back Down 2.
Well, it has more studio value than Never Back
far
Down
more.
2. It wasn't straight to VHS, but it was
bigger actors.
Yeah. Still conceptually just an awful movie. I'd also like to point out that I don't know the guy's name, but it's the guy from American Horror Story who's like orchestrating everything from.
That was the one big actor they had in the movie. What the hell is this?
But he wasn't a big actor back then.
No,
he
he
didn't
wasn't.
get big until after that.
You know what? That same. It might have been that.
Whatever his name is, Tate.
Evan Peters.
Evan Peters. Is that
Evan
his
Peters.
name?
That's his name. And that kid. I think his big breakout role would have been in X-Men.
American Horror Story, right?
No, he was in X-Men First Class in 2011.
Yeah,
he played
he was
Banshee.
Quicksilver.
The
guy who played Banshee is a really good actor.
Yeah, but he looks just like him, right?
They're kind of similar.
Who played Banshee.
I think they're kind of similar looking.
Evan Peters played Quicksilver. You're right. Yeah.
But have you seen The Last Exorcism?
No, I haven't.
That kid who plays Banshee is so fucking good.
Really?
He's fucking chilling.
Okay,
He's
I'll have to check that
dude.
out.
Dude, I didn't really think that was going to be a good movie, and I don't like found footage movies. That was probably the best found footage film that I've ever seen. Like, it caught me by surprise. It was super cool. Like,
all right, I'll check that out. Well, so this kid, Evan Peters, who was also played Quicksilver in X-Men First Class, he's in the movie. Now, he was in the first Never Back Down as well, in a kind of a side character role. I guess probably about the same size as his role in Never Back Down 2. I think
he was a little bit more involved in this one.
Never Back Down 2. Yeah, he was kind of like the Dana White promoter of the movie. Now,
actually, Michael J. White makes that reference. He calls him like
Dana White,
little miniature Dana White motherfucker.
Now, what I think happened here is I think that Evan Peters was roped into a sour deal. I think that he probably did Never Back Down 1, thinking, I'm never going to have to do one of these piece of shit movies again. My career is going to explode after this. Then his manager came and he was like, oh, you know they're doing Never Back Down 2, right? And he was like, so what does that have to do with me? Well, you signed a contract. You have to appear in this movie. And I think what happened is he probably had like a small role, maybe like a cameo lined up for Never Back Down 2. And then the studio just fucked him, and they realized he was clearly the biggest star. His career was taking off. And then they just put him in like a massive role in the movie for the marketability. That's what I'm guessing happened. Needless to say, he can't be proud of his work but in that film. But hey.
No, but you know what? I don't think he'd hit it big yet. By the time Never Back Down 2 was out, I don't think
that might have been the last B movie he did before he started to take off a little more.
Yeah, I think that was like the end of his scratching and grinding portion of his career. Like after that, that's really when he started to take off. But
and what a way to end the final portion of his career. What a perfect movie. What a perfect note to go out on before heading into the mainstream.
You know, that last rung of the ladder, you know, that last dick you have to suck before you're all done with that part of your life. Like,
well, in other news, I wanted to talk about the huge fight cancellation. Tony Ferguson pulling out. Pretty crazy.
Man. Yeah, I saw the notice on Instagram.
Which, you know, I was surprised to hear how he got his injury, but I don't think anybody was surprised to hear Tony Ferguson got injured when you see his insane training methods of him kicking metal pipes, elbowing metal pipes, just doing all-around crazy shit constantly.
He's a wild man.
He is a wild man, and I love
the
Tony
way he
Ferguson.
fights.
I do too.
Fan of Tony
he's probably one of the most exciting, just like violent fighters in the UFC. That dude is all bones.
Yeah, he's skinny, but you can tell by the way he moves with people. He's stronger than he looks. He's fucking stick skinny, but he can just toss people. Like
he's really smart with his energy economy. Like he doesn't exert more than he has to. You know, in a good way though. Yeah. You know, he doesn't mind going into guard, getting on his back, which might not have done him any favors fighting Khabib, but
but it's also like I don't want to pad him too much with this, but Khabib doesn't fight a lot of guys who are that dangerous off their back.
It's true.
I don't want to say that one way or another.
No, that is true. He's probably, if you really look at it, like in the entire UFC, Ferguson is probably the most dangerous dude off his back. I mean,
he's one of the most active guys.
Who does more damage than him off their back? Pretty much nobody. He's very active.
He's on his back, like he's guarding, he's throwing submissions, he's throwing elbows and shit. He's doing work off his back.
Absolutely,
I fucking love that. It's great.
Now, with that being said, it's a bummer. It's the fourth time this fight got canceled, which sucks. I'd like to see this fight already. However, I don't think they could have found a better replacement, except for unless they would have got McGregor. Obviously, that would have been huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, you couldn't get a better replacement than Holloway because he's actually really kind of. To me, I look at Max Holloway, and to me, he is like a upgraded Diaz brother. And that's not meant to be like an insult to the Diaz brothers, but
I can see what you mean though. He's like a Diaz brother with like an extra gear. Like,
exactly. That's exactly when I was thinking of how to describe Max Holloway. That's exactly what I meant when I said an upgraded Diaz brother, because he's like a Diaz brother, except for he finishes a lot of dudes, and he's got a little more. When he decides to turn it on, it seems like he's got a little more power in his punches.
He's got more wind up. Like the Diaz brothers, they're more pepper. They're like tight end of the punch shots that do a lot of damage. They fucking rack your brain up real bad. They're more volume, but I see that Max Holloway, like his shit comes from the hip.
Yeah, he is. If you guys didn't see his last fight with Aldo, man, that guy just really has improved like 110%.
Oh, yeah.
He's so good, and that's a really interesting fight because basically what you have there now is a super fight. It's really for the first time ever you're seeing the 145-pound champ now versus the 155-pound champ. Now Khabib, he's not officially the champ, but he may as well be. The guy's undefeated.
Yeah, he may as well be.
I mean, if you were going to take this fight and you were going to ask people, who would you rather see? Would you rather see Ferguson versus Holloway or Khabib? I think most people would probably lean towards Khabib just because he was almost like the uncrowned champ, you know, because he's undefeated, big win streak.
He's had a long road to that first contendership because he really he should have had a title opportunity.
He should have, and it was a weird mix. I think with Khabib, it was a weird mix of circumstance too, though.
Well, he had some trouble with his weight for a while.
Yeah, he had trouble with his weight. He had some injuries. There was just a lot of times when I think there was I wouldn't fault UFC for this because I think there was a lot of times where they were trying to line him up as like the next big dude.
Yeah, that's definitely not at all what I mean by him having a long road. I'm just saying in general, like he probably should have been at that top shelf
because he
level
was
a long time.
I remember like God when he first fought like DosAnjos, and that was what, like 5 years ago.
When DosAnjos was like
when DosAnjos was on his tear,
and
so
then
that's something people forget too. That DosAnjos had a tear where it was like like a 9 or 10 fight win streak.
It was when he started training with Raphael Cordero, who was taking these Brazilians and turning them into devil strikers. So Raphael DosAnjos came through and was annihilating people, just making top shelf fighters look like bitches. And then fucking Khabib just came and beat the dog shit out of him.
That's the interesting thing about it. Don't quote me on this. I would have to go back and look at it, but I believe it was like DosAnjos won 4 fights, then he got beat by Khabib, then he won another. So right in the middle of his terror, he gets beat, and he didn't get just. He got beat handily.
Yeah.
I mean, Khabib just completely controlled him.
He just shut him down. Yeah.
Yeah. So people kind of just kind of forgot about Khabib in a way after DosAnjos went on his tear, and then
Well, that's a really big deal. You know, like that's especially beating like right in the middle of his tear. Like I think a lot of people don't really focus on what that means.
Right.
It wasn't like he hadn't gotten his momentum yet. It wasn't like he was at the end of his momentum. He caught him right in the middle.
Right.
And right when he was at his peak, and he hit that wall called Khabib.
Yeah. And I think people don't realize like how important a nice like run in MMA is. Like if you look at most fighters, it's very rare that you'll have a fighter with like kind of a back and forth record. Like most guys will go on like hot streaks where they'll have like 5 to 10 wins in a row maybe, where they're just wrecking people, and then they'll get that one loss, and then something, I don't know if it does something to their confidence or it's just a physical thing, but typically they go on runs. So and that's like Khabib is just like this guy who just derails people, you know.
I would say that probably a lot of what you experience is like as a fighter, you train really hard.
Right.
Your work is just this incredible amount of stress.
Right.
And when you're winning, you're going like, fuck yeah, all right, I'm doing this, but I'm getting this done. You know, I'm getting a lot out of this. I'm putting in work, and it feels like when you get a loss, it's like all that work you did just got like dumped into the river, and it's like, oh, okay, now I did all that for basically nothing.
Right.
Sure, you still got your paycheck cut to you. You still got experience, and it's not like you really didn't get anything out of that. You did. It's a loss is as good experience as a win. It's a lot of people consider it better. You know, most people come back better from losses, or you learn more from it. But it's just the way that it derails you is you can't help feeling like you just wasted so much energy. You just wasted so much time.
Right.
And I think that fucking breaks a lot of people. Like,
yeah,
at least for a period of time.
Well, and it's different too in the sense that this is not like a regular job that you're talking about. This is not like I've got to turn in a report by a certain date, and then if my report sucks, all right, I'm back to the drawing board. I got to put some time in. This is you're putting your body on the line. So in the process of getting ready for that big challenge, there's shit that happens. You know, there's injuries that happen. There's you're completely. I mean, your whole adrenal system, like everything is shot. You know, because you're training so hard. So it's not only is it can it be probably demotivating mentally, but physically you got to climb that mountain again. And anytime you add the physical and the mental, it's much harder.
Well, there's also this thing that happens like every time I fight, and every time I get like a new injury, something becomes real about it. You know, like something that was theoretical before becomes a reality. My first concussion, I was like, "Oh shit! Well, that can happen now." You know, my first broken bone in a fight. I'm like, "Oh, fuck me, that could happen now." You know, it's like when like first time I got my face knotted up real bad, and that literally happened in my first fight. So
yeah, I was gonna say that was the worst. That was probably like your toughest war. That was your first one, right?
That was a good tough one. Yeah, that was a good back and forth. But yeah, when stuff like that happens, it goes from being like this thing where you think you're prepared for it. You think it's like when I got my first real bad concussion, I was like in bed for days. Like it was so bad. I was like delirious and I was dizzy and I couldn't walk right. I was like after the fight, I was like throwing up from it. I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And when you realize like how bad shit can get, like it a lot of the time that happens in a loss. Like you get a loss and you go, "Fuck me, I just lost that whole thing, and I'm in the hospital, and I got hospital bills and shit now from this." Technically the promoters are supposed to cover that, but a lot of that shit gets fucked up in the loopholes. That happened to me, where we were like, okay, so we're covered by the insurance. We got to go to the hospital, and the paramedics were like, well, you didn't report that to the fight doctor right after the fight, so like we can't help you with anything. They were just like, all right, well, we got to go to the hospital. So,
Now, did you notice that when you so for instance, when you fought for Bellator, did you notice that the quality of care in a bigger fight promotion was any better than
so much worse, man? They just because they didn't give a fuck about me. They didn't give a fuck about me. They put me in the back and they're just like they're pumping AC through that building and they're just like because I wasn't a high profile fighter. They didn't give a shit what I was doing. Right. They're like, all right, your coaches are over here. Like, we got to get him over here, guys. So they just put me in they're like, get his clothes off. Like, so just like, they wouldn't let me warm up. So I'm hanging out in the cold with no shirt on and shit. And they're just like, all right, send him in. And then after the fight was over, I had this big gash on my face. The doctor just goes straight blood sport on us. He just he just pushes everything off the table. He's like, we're going to take care of this right here. And sews my face up.
I think that's what a lot of people don't realize too, is that with a lot of these fights, so like when you had your Bellator fight and you fought Joey Davis, who was what was he, 33-0 as a...
No, he was 171-0.
Okay, sorry, I was a little off there, guys. I was just a smidgen
just
off.
a couple bouts you didn't account for.
He was 171-0 as an amateur wrestler, so he was a really fucking good amateur wrestler. And I think in their minds they were probably thinking, we're gonna take this amateur fighter because you'd had one pro fight at that point or two.
I'd had one pro fight. Point.
So they were thinking, and who knows? They might not have even. Do you think they even looked at your amateur record before you fought him?
I'm not sure. No, I think
they were probably thinking.
Really
they were probably thinking, we're gonna take this guy. He's 1-0. Joey Davis was he was having his debut. They were probably thinking, not realizing though that you had an 8-1 amateur record, so you had plenty of experience, and it really, really kind of shined through on the fight because I don't think that they were expecting that fight to be as tough for him as it was. And he didn't fight for a long time after that. His next fight after that was wasn't it over a year maybe?
It was a while. I think he just recently had it.
He just had it. Yeah,
he annihilated the guy.
He did. I saw that.
He destroyed him, but.
But I my opinion is that the reason why his fight after that took so long is I think they probably realized he's got some more work to do.
Yeah.
Like, we got to go back to the drawing board, and this kid needs to get more experience.
Well, his fight with me, my only thing about it is he caught me early, and I was fucking stumbling around for basically the next 15 minutes, half asleep in there. I made a lot of mistakes myself. Forgot a lot of the game plan. Like, he basically fought like the way we were expecting him to.
Right.
And I just I'm too aggressive. Like, I wanna be in the fight. I wanna be like I wanna be in the pocket, and I wanna be working. And he wasn't letting me do that, and it got the best of me for sure.
What was interesting though about, because we were there watching, and what was interesting about it was he. Going into the fight, the first thing I would have said, and I talked to Keith about this after the fight, was like, I would have said, one of the typical things you'll say if you're fighting a wrestler is like, stay away from the leg kicks, no leg kicks, because then they're going to take you down. Mm-hmm. But actually, like, your best moments in the fight were when you were leg kicking him. Mm-hmm. And because I don't think he was expecting you to kick that hard. And then also, too, is that as the fight went on, especially when you guys got to that last round, I think you looked better as the fight went on. Mm-hmm. Like, I think if that would have been a 5-round fight, who knows, there could have been different.
That's what a lot of people told me. It looked like my conditioning was holding out better than his was.
He was tired at the end of that fight. He could barely even get up.
I hate to speculate.
Right.
Considering like he did fairly beat me. He was a gentleman about it after the fight too. We talked, and he was very cool. But I felt like I was probably a little bit more like I didn't feel any exhaustion from that fight. I remember like at the end of the fight, I was just I'd taken some damage and I was kind of fucked up, but I didn't feel tired at all.
Right.
But even as tired as he was, I couldn't stop his takedowns. Like I think he was just gonna probably get more busy with the takedown, and but that also, as he was getting tired, would have given me more opportunity to work on the ground too.
Right.
Or probably would have had more submission opportunities as that was going. And the last takedown he got on me, I was going for that little like I can't remember what it's called, a little side choke where you underhook the neck, and
like a darce.
Not a darce. I didn't have the arm, but I was trying to kind of like underhook his neck and just like scissor his.
Oh, like the one John or I think.
Yeah, but I know
what you mean.
Yeah, I didn't have my hips in the right place, and I wasn't able to really sink it. And I think I might have had more opportunities to land something like that the more tired he got.
Right.
So yeah, if we had a couple more rounds to work, who knows?
Well, and one interesting thing about that is how you were talking about how, when you fight a guy like that, like, it's just there's nothing you can do to stop the takedowns because they're just so specialized in that one area.
It was tremendous.
And
it's almost kind of an honor to be double legged by a guy like that.
Well, what still drives me crazy till this day is when I'll be talking to somebody who maybe doesn't have any experience, like, training at all.
So, bro, just get up.
Right. And not to say that I'm an expert or anything, but I've at least trained and had a few fights, and, like, I know how fucking difficult it is to try to... I've never grappled with anybody like Joey Davis, but just other good wrestlers. Mm-hmm. And even just good wrestlers, it's hard to get up from under their fucking takedowns, let alone a guy who's 180 whatever, undefeated. But normal people will say, oh yeah, but if you train, like, I feel like I'm strong enough to where it's like, you're a fucking moron. Like, go get an IQ test. How stupid are you? It's crazy to me.
I've been saying for a long time, there's something about the sport of fighting that, like, I don't know, it's like an alpha male thing, if it's just like the way that, like, people are wired, like, everybody thinks they could do it.
Right. I think
everybody thinks that they've got it. Like I could probably, like, no, dude, we train and specialize in this for a reason, and it looks the way it does for a reason.
Right. And and that's the funny thing too, is that people just I think it's a way people are wired thing. I think people have a natural tendency to believe that they're more capable than they are.
Yeah. And, but it seems like specifically with fighting, though. Like,
specifically,
so, like,
yes.
Like when people, like, I watch basketball, I don't watch basketball, but if I watch basketball, I'm going to look at that and be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in there.
Right.
Like, those guys would destroy me at this. I have no idea.
People have this idea that they have some kind of untapped potential. They're going to be able to hit this second gear that you haven't seen before. And don't get me wrong.
I just get mad enough, I'll just Hulk out and smash you,
right.
bro.
Are there individuals out there who are born just naturally more badass than others? Yeah, they're out there.
Gifted.
There's gifted individuals for sure.
Some people are just freaks. Fighting is an innate thing. It's part of our DNA. I think biologically there are some people who are freaks.
Absolutely.
But those are not like most people are the same.
Right.
And then you train to be better.
Yes, and which brings me to my next point. Those of you out there listening who, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, I might be one of those freaks. They might be talking about me. You're probably not a freak. You're probably just a moron. And you need to stop thinking that right now. Because you're probably not that guy. You, whoever you are that's listening that thinks you are that.
Please just don't think that you're that guy. Like,
yes.
I wholeheartedly agree. If you want to find out if you're that guy, go
to a
take
gym
an
and
MMA
find out.
class and find out.
And you'll probably find out pretty quickly that you're not.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to say, oh man, like, we're talking 99.9%.
Right.
Like,
yes.
I'm pretty sure that isn't you. It wasn't me. I trained really hard to be as good as I am. Like, I've been doing martial arts from one degree to another. Oh man, if I do the math, 25 years. I first started doing karate and judo and shit when I was like 4 years old. And yeah, I wasn't like super dedicated my whole life. I didn't always train like full time, but like I've been on and off doing martial arts for 25 years. It's a pretty solid resume. Like,
right. It's a lot of time.
Yeah,
people forget. It's like anything else. It takes reps. It takes time to get good at something.
And I'm literally, the fact that I started so young, my brain and my body are just wired to do it. That is the thing I understand. That is the thing that I know how to do better than other stuff. Some people know how fucking cars work. I don't know. I know how human bodies move and how you can manipulate them and make them work the wrong way.
Absolutely. And that's, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I was telling her, I was saying, I feel like, because I've actually had this kind of conflict lately with myself where I'm going back to school in the summer, but it's because I've been getting a little bored with just training so much. And I don't know if it's because, it's like, since I was 15 now, I've just been exercising nonstop, and that might be why I'm doing this marathon, and I'm kind of venturing out and doing these other, just switching it up. But I do find myself growing bored of the constant trying to push myself further physically. I need some other kind of stimulation,
right?
Because what I told her, I was like, I feel like, almost not to sound egotistical in any way, but I feel like it's almost like I've reached that level now where I feel like I'm like a black belt in exercise. Like, I feel like I've gotten really good at exercise.
You definitely
are, dude. And now it's like, because I've always been a gym rat.
Yeah.
You never had to like talk. Like, sometimes Keith would have to wake me up to come and train martial arts, but you'd never have to wake me up to go train at the gym. I would just go. But now it's to that point where it's like, I just need some other kind of stimulation mentally, I guess you could say.
You know what? I've been experiencing a lot of that same thing. I think it probably has something to do with like my age and like the amount of things that I ventured off into and hobbied with in my life. I hit this point recently where I was just like, man, like, I still want to train, I still want to fight, I want to do all that stuff, but I'm kind of like bored with myself. I kind of feel like I am an incomplete human being in a lot of ways. Like, I wanted to start like learning music, learning, like art, things that are going to really like stimulate me as a person. I kind of am on my like on my self-improvement year.
Right. No. It's so funny, and I think maybe it does have something to do with age, because I started feeling the same thing, the exact same
it's
thing.
Like, I'm almost fucking 30 now, and I don't know how to play a musical instrument.
I think that is part of it. I think it is the inevitability of getting closer to that 30 year mark. Because I was telling Ariana the same thing. I just you feel like you want something new, you know. And then I guess once you start to get closer to 30, you start to think to yourself, well, there's only so much time, you know. I'm not a kid anymore,
Right.
especially with us, I start thinking about, well, what if, you know, she wants to have kids in a few years and I don't have time for these kinds of things, and it's like I feel like if I'm gonna start doing some of these other things, now is the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Like I hate to sound like I'm I don't know, being like a bitch about my life. I've lived a pretty interesting life. I've done a lot of cool shit in my day. Like I'm very proud of the human being that I've become, but I just feel like there's a lot that I haven't gotten into, like things that would enhance my world, my existence, like learning another language.
Right.
I only speak English. I feel like there's a whole universe out there that you're not experiencing, because I had this conversation with this dude. I was Uber driving. He was like this French dude who he speaks like 5 languages, and he was just saying how like he's like, yeah, man, like learning a language, it's not like saying this word means this word means this word. This is how people talk. It's just how they communicate. This is how it's a whole different way of thinking.
Right.
And I just thought about that. I was like, there are dimensions of thought that I'm just leaving out of my life because I only speak one language.
Right.
Like, and it's the same with like music. Like, look at the way somebody plays a guitar. Look at the way somebody who plays a guitar listens to guitar. They understand what that person's doing.
Right.
They understand
it on a different level.
The complexity of it. They understand, and that is a type of communication between that person and that person that they have because they both play that instrument.
Right.
Those are dimensions of thought.
Well, that's like, it's kind of the it's almost kind of the sacrifice you make in a way when you choose to really like go for a goal and specialize in something, you know?
Right.
Because that's probably, maybe that's exactly why I'm feeling the same way that I'm feeling, is because I've taken all this time to like specialize in exercise and dedicate all my time and energy to that, just like you did with fighting. And it's almost like you feel like by doing so, these other things kind of get lost in the shuffle. Other interests that you have, you know.
And yeah, that's exactly. I think that's exactly right. It's something that you focused on one thing for so long, and you get to this benchmark of being almost 30, and you go, oh fuck me, I gotta learn some other shit.
It creeps up on you pretty quick.
Yeah. And also, like, my coach talks about it a lot. How the samurai would practice. I think he was talking about it from like Book of Five Rings or something. How the samurai would practice a soft art.
Right.
Like they would have like everyone.
Yes, they always
like,
balance it out with I have heard that.
Yeah, they would always keep a balance because they would practice their violent art and then they would practice a soft art, like painting or calligraphy.
Have you ever heard like Paul Chek before?
No.
He's this really interesting. God, what would you even call him? I was gonna say a trainer, but he's more like a guru. But he's been around for years, and he's based out of. I think
we're getting a little sound quality.
He's based out of San Diego, California. But he's this really interesting guy, and he talks about that a lot. He talks about kind of the yin and the yang, and he talks about how you can't just redline it all year round. Like, and he's talking about in regards to like exercise and stuff like that, obviously. But he talks about how you need that balance of the yin and the yang, and about how you can't just redline it year round. You need to what he would describe it as is you need to stimulate almost like the feminine side of your personality as well. Like you need to practice a softer side.
I feel like I have heard that because like you're using keywords like redline and using the feminine side. And those are things that are something's clicking in my head here. Like,
and he's got this whole system. It's called you can get it's called the Czech Institute or something like that. But
Check into Cash. That's what
Check
it was.
into Cash. He's
Check
actually
into Cash.
the CEO of Check into Cash.
He's
but he's got
the
some,
Check into Cash fortune.
He's got some interesting philosophies, and then there's another guy who's a famous trainer to a lot of Olympians. His name's Charles Poliquin, and they call him the Strength Sensei, and he's been training Olympians since like the 1980s, I think, and he's got this really interesting thing that he recommends where every year he'll learn a new skill. And he says that the idea behind that is not only does it help you live a more fulfilled, enriched life, but it also, he says, it's one of the keys to aging less rapidly, because every time you learn a new skill, you're firing these new neurons in your brain, and you're making new connections. So that's one of his keys to aging better.
Oh, that's a really good point. It keeps your brain alive because you're functioning your brain. Yeah, you're like, I heard someone describing what neurogenesis actually is and how you're creating new connections in your brain. That's essentially what learning things is essentially neurogenesis. You're creating new neurological connections in your brain. So that makes sense that it keeps your brain healthy to learn new things. And I've noticed that when I go through these fucking pity party fucking periods of time in my life when I'm just like not doing anything and I'm fucking off and I'm eating shitty and I'm not really like engaging my mind, my mind will wither away. I'll get dumber, I'll get less active. My mind will atrophy the way that my muscles will.
It has a cascading effect on like everything.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because I've noticed the same thing where I'll I'll even even if I notice that if I'm kind of fucking off a little bit, I'll even the content that I take in is like less quality. Like I'll just spend more time watching random YouTube videos and stupid shit as opposed to like actually reading something. Or
I know exactly what you mean, because I'll just sit there and I'll fucking like put a movie on I've seen 100 times and I'll just be like zoned out
yeah. And don't get me wrong,
I don't need to pay attention to this. I could play this in my fucking head right now.
And don't get me wrong, I do think that sometimes you need those moments to like decompress a little, but yeah, it does get to a point where if you're not like being productive enough and it's just you need new shit.
It's kind of like it's like having a drink. I think occasionally it's good for you.
Right.
I think occasionally you need to be a maniac. I think that's part of. I think that's ingrained in me. But you, like everything else, you need a balance, and it can be addicting. You need to stop it before it takes too much of a hold of you. You need to like splurge and enjoy yourself. Have those like hangover days where you're just like, I am not doing shit. I'm just gonna watch the same garbage on YouTube or whatever, and then I'm gonna go to sleep fat and happy, and then you need to get up and fucking do something with your life the next day.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really easy not to. It's really easy to just be like, that was so nice yesterday, I think I'm gonna do it again.
Absolutely. Let me use the bathroom real quick.
All right. So looks like we're about an hour and 10 minutes in. Matt Lovato is taking the first bathroom break of the session, and I'm left alone here on that relatively sour note to keep you guys entertained. Sounds to me like it's been going pretty well so far. I actually I'm enjoying this a lot. I'd like to do this more often. If we get some feedback from you guys, I'm sure we'll be having this posted on social media mostly. A lot of friends and family will be listening in on this. I hope to hear what you guys have to say. We're touching on a lot of media stuff and a lot of fight related things. I know we've been going that direction a lot, but I think we'll route away from that. I think we're going to get back into some more. Probably media things. Like me and Matt are big movie buffs, big like comic book buffs. Actually, you know what I read recently, which was goddamn amazing. I got Injustice Year One.
I've never read any of the Injustice stuff, but I've heard like a lot of really good things about it.
Like, I know, like, I'm gonna say this because if you know what it is, you should already fucking know this. Superman just fucking kills everybody.
Right.
Like Superman goes on a fucking tirade. It's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. I should have brought it. I was thinking about it. I wanted to let you borrow it and check it out, dude.
While we're on the topic of DC Comics, did you see Justice League?
Of course I did, dude.
What are your opinions on it?
Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Wasn't great. I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I think he was probably like the best part. And that and Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, however you pronounce her name. I have no idea.
She's a good Wonder Woman.
She's good. She's probably the most attractive human being in the world.
She looks like an alien.
Yeah,
like she's not even she's like a real life version of one of the avatars from Avatar.
Yeah, from Avatar. She's one of the what are they called?
Na'vi.
The Na'vi. Yeah. So yeah, she's like one of those, and but I heard she's like she's like an Israeli military.
Yes.
Like she was like a legit.
She was.
Yeah. So she is. They were like mad about her doing movies and getting like famous in America. Right. Like I don't know how that works. But
so here's how I feel about Justice League. I went to go see it with Ariana. I had some issues with it. Now I do agree. I kind of liked Jason Momoa's Aquaman. That was good. I did like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
Oh, I also, before we get carried away, I thought they did pretty good with Cyborg. How he was very like angsty, like that. That's I remember that him being more like shitty about it because he basically lost his whole fucking body.
Yeah, if you really think about the Cyborg character, that would be like the saddest thing ever. Yeah. You're just made of metal. Like, do you even get pleasure out of anything anymore? Right? Like, what the fuck happens there?
Your fucking whole body is gone.
So that, to me, that character is that's a weird character.
Yeah, no, it's like, but don't. I feel like I remember from comics and like older cartoons and renditions of him that he was very angsty like that. He was very like mad at everybody about being in that shitty fucking position.
It's almost like a version of like Ben Grimm, the Thing from Fantastic Four. How he was always super fucking sad that he was made out of rock.
Yeah, or like Iceman from the original X-Men comics. How his whole body was made of ice because he fucking lost all of his body parts. In like fights and stuff, and he's just pissed at everybody because he's like, this is great. I'm literally an Iceman.
He probably gets no action because the girls are just like, ew, you're cold, get away.
Yeah, it's fucking ice stick sticking in there.
It's literally just like an icicle.
Dude, it's like a tongue on a flagpole thing. It just sticks like
Can you imagine? Dude. Iceman's penis is like the scene from A Christmas Story. The girl's vaginal lips are just getting stuck to his icicle.
Dude, that's awful. But yeah, that's exactly what would be happening. It'd be so gruesome.
So, the movie itself...
You have to pour like hot water in there, but that would melt his dick.
He's got to have Human Torch on standby every time he has sex. So, the movie, my biggest issues with it were I felt like it was incredibly inconsistent. Like, as far as tone. Like, it was did not... This movie did not know what it was meant to be. And it was very clear that it was made by two different directors. Because they started with Zack Snyder, he got fired, and then they had Joss Whedon from fucking The Avengers come in.
Did that happen? I didn't know that was what they did.
They started... now, what they claimed was that Zack, and I think this is true actually. I think they claimed that Zack Snyder left for personal reasons, and I guess it's really, really sad actually. But I guess his daughter had committed suicide in the last few years, so I think that's obviously super
I need to
sad.
Pay more attention to like what's actually going on in the world with shit like that. Like,
so
I've got my little comment, but I didn't know any of that.
So he started out, and then they had Joss Whedon come in, and he kind of, if you guys aren't familiar with Joss Whedon, which I don't know who wouldn't be at this point, he directed The Avengers and, all that shit.
And Firefly.
Which
was a really, really underrated show because it was on the fucking sci-fi channel.
Yeah.
It was a great show.
So which Joss Whedon kind of has this unique blend of humor with action, and he's very almost kind of meta, where the characters are very self-aware. So there was a lot more humor in Justice League than there was in Batman versus Superman or some of the other DC movies. But the problem with that is that you felt like you were literally watching two different movies kind of juxtaposed together. I guess that would have...
I didn't really notice that until you pointed it out right now, but as I'm reviewing it in my head, there's a pretty distinct like splice. There's a point where like it becomes a little bit more, a lot more like lighthearted, a lot more humorous, a lot more of that, like you said, but the whole self-aware characters. The very beginning of the movie has a strongly Zack Snyder-ish tone, where Batman comes out and he's jumping from the rooftops. I thought that was so cool. The way that scene was, I just felt like Batman ended up becoming so underutilized in the movie.
He was, and that's the funny thing about it too, is that in both of those movies, in Batman versus Superman and in this one, it's weird because as a comic book fan,
I'm up everywhere, super bad today. It's hangover shit.
As a comic book fan, you're very satisfied with it in the sense that it's the most Batman you've really ever seen on screen as far as like being true to the comic book. I mean, that's like a Batman's Batman, you know? Like Christian Bale, the Christopher Nolan Batman, that was kind of like a kind of like a hybrid, because they did this kind of almost like real world type twist on it. And don't get me wrong, I love that Batman. That's probably my favorite. Those are probably my favorite Batman movies, that whole trilogy. But this was like the comic book Batman come to life.
This was like a comic book Batman,
right?
This is more like the. This is a lot like the Dark Knight Returns. Batman.
Yeah, a little bit, like,
where he's kind of older, he's real big and bulky.
However, but here's where they missed the mark for me, though.
Okay,
is they took Batman. Now definitely in Batman versus Superman, I caught that vibe, kind of the Dark Knight Returns Batman. However, in this one, they tried to turn him into like a Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. I felt like they gave him a lot more comedy material. They almost, like, when you got to the big fight scenes and stuff like that, they'd almost kind of reduced Batman into like a joke. Like he was effective.
He was not really useful. Nothing he did had any place. Like Batman's whole deal is like, I like the cartoon Batmans the most. I always like seem to gravitate towards those. Batman is just super gangster because he is the contingency plan.
Right.
Everything goes wrong.
He's the one you
Batman
count on.
knows what's up.
Right.
And
whereas, because he's the smartest one. Whereas with this one, it was like the opposite. It was like Batman would set a plan, that plan would backfire, and everybody else would have to fix it.
That's a really good point that you brought it up. That they kind of made him like the Tony Stark of this, because that is Tony Stark's legacy from the comics. He has his great suit and everything, but basically every plan he sets fails.
Yeah, he's like a perennial fuck up.
Yeah. He's the biggest
an alcoholic.
Genius. He's this great dude who has all this fucking great shit going for him, but the plan never works the way it's supposed to. And that's kind of what they did to Batman in this movie. That's a really good point. Like they made that connection.
I didn't have online there was a lot of people who had issues with like the villain of the movie, Steppenwolf. I didn't have any big issues with that.
I just didn't like how CGI he was. I actually liked his character. I thought he was really funny. Like how he's like torturing the people. They're like, please, we have children. He's like, why do people keep telling me that?
So now there was one major scene in the movie that really had me scratching my head, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It was the scene where, and spoiler alert for those of you that haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen it by now, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you shouldn't even be listening to this anyway. It was the scene where I think it was Aquaman, it was Cyborg and Flash, and then they go and they dig up Superman. Okay, they dig up Superman's corpse. And then they take it to the
Kryptonian vessel.
From the General Zod, and then they like reanimate him basically. Like they bring him back to life inside the vessel.
They use the mother box.
Right. Now, I don't know what it was for me, but just the visual of these two characters digging up Superman's dead body and then taking his corpse to this vessel, I was like, what? Am I in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, what the hell am I watching?
What is going on here? That was just crazy to me.
I can see that. Yeah.
And now, in a way, in a way, it was the truest comic book moment in the movie. Because comic books are full of batshit crazy, insane moments like that.
They're full of really, really dark things like that.
Yes.
Like that would have been. They tried to add a lot of humor to that. There was a lot of like jokes being cracked back and forth. Wasn't crazy about the Flash. I thought they couldn't figure out if they wanted him to be funny or not, and like it didn't land for me.
Yeah, and after whenever I go to see these movies, I'll always end up going to go see them with Ariana. And I always will kind of look for her feedback because she's not really like a huge comic book fan like me. So of course I go into it like guns blazing, like ready, just
very critical,
ready to pick apart any little thing. I just can't help it. But with her, I always am just curious to hear her opinion from an outsider's perspective, a non-objective kind of analyzation of it. And she said the exact same thing. She was like, yeah, I didn't really like the Flash character because it felt like they were trying way too hard to make him funny.
Yeah.
And when you try too hard to make somebody funny, it's not funny.
Yeah.
They have to be effortlessly kind of just, that's what the character is, you know?
I did like, even though this was a really obvious joke and everything, it still just made me laugh. I think it's just the way he says it is when he's like, what's your superpower? And he's like, I'm rich.
I did like that line. That was a perfect line. Yeah. No, that was a beautiful line because it's like, that is Batman's superpower. Batman is rich as fuck. Like, that's his superpower.
Because he kind of says it like real, like grumbly. He's like, rich.
Yeah, you know, and that's another thing, actually. People were giving Ben Affleck a lot of shit online for, like, I actually don't dislike Ben Affleck as Batman.
I think we could have done better.
I think, yes, I agree. I agree with that 100%. I think he could have done better, but I don't hate him as Batman. I think that for certain scenarios, like for that line in particular, I think for certain scenarios he's perfect, and then for other ones, not so much. I would have went with, like, I remember when they were first casting that role, they were looking at like Josh Brolin. That would have been a really good option, I think, maybe
for like an older Batman.
Yeah,
like,
for an older Batman.
That's acceptable. I
maybe
can't
a little
really
too
see
old.
Josh Brolin being Batman.
Maybe a little too old.
That, yeah.
Another one they were looking at, I think, was John Hamm. Now, the guy from Mad Men.
Oh yeah,
main dude.
That's interesting.
Now that's an interesting one. Now I don't have any big issues with that, except for one. Last night we were at my brother-in-law's house and we were watching that movie Bridesmaids, and there's a scene in that movie where John Hamm is having sex with Kristen Wiig's character, and they're laying in bed together. John Hamm has T-Rex arms. His arms are so goddamn skinny. I'm serious, man. He's got like
real short.
They're short and they're skinny. Like he looks like you took a regular sized like dude, and then you gave him like a 5-year-old's arms.
I never knew that.
And
I
you
never
know what?
noticed that about John
I've
Hamm.
never been one. I've always just kind of figured, you know what? Hey, if the guy doesn't got the physique to play Batman, they'll beef him up a little. They'll probably throw on a cycle,
probably give him some
steroids.
arm extensions or something.
Yeah, they'll get a really good trainer in there.
They'll put these gloves on him that go like way
right.
long.
But however,
grabber claws for the fingers.
John Hamm's arms appeared to me to be so freakishly short and odd looking that those cannot be Batman's arms. They just can't. There's no amount of beefing you can do that can make me believe that those arms are the arms of a man who's going to go in there and kick somebody's ass. So that ruled him out for me. His
How
little
about,
T-Rex arm.
here's one that I'm really interested in. I was looking at a thread for who they're going to have play Adam Warlock in the next because you know they have the what's it called, those elite people, I can't remember what they're fucking
like the
called.
Kree?
Not the Kree, the golden people.
The ones from the Guardians of the Galaxy.
They're the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie they showed in the credits. They
Right.
had the Adam Warlock.
Yeah, and
plot,
she's like, I shall call him Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of debate over who is going to play him. And I saw one of them. It's like Zac Efron. I was like, he looks exactly like him. I think that would be fucking perfect.
He could be a good. Now let me throw one out there. Kind of an oddball.
Yeah.
If I'm just going off of Adam Warlock's look from the comic books, let's give him some Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, but Matthew
He's
McConaughey...
got those golden locks.
Sure. Matthew McConaughey in like 1995, but like,
he's
Matthew
a little too
McConaughey-
old now.
Also, he's been falling apart ever since.
He has
ever since Dallas.
Yeah, I was gonna say
like,
ever since Dallas Buyers. He
still a
destroyed
great
himself.
character, great. You know, yeah, he looks exactly right for Adam Warlock. He even kind of has like the same facial features.
That's what I mean. Like, he looks like a human version, just a golden, beautiful man.
Yeah, if he just had that body still, from like
they'd have to beef him up for sure. They could imagine how funny it would be, just like him, like y'all are the Guardians of the Galaxy. Say, man, you guys got that Infinity Stone, man. Hey, man, we gotta kill Thanos, man.
See, Mexican? That name sounds Mexican.
Say, man, you Star-Lord? Yeah, that would, have you? Speaking of which, wait a minute. I wanted to make it a point to bring this up. Have you heard the Matthew McConaughey Carl's Jr. commercial on the radio? Oh my fucking god! If you guys haven't heard the Matthew McConaughey Carl's Jr. commercial on the radio, he's promoting like a burger. I don't remember which one it is, but he's like, "We're talking about the big juicy." Ever so savory, like he gives the most ridiculous. Like I almost want to. I almost want to.
So savory.
Let me see if I could find this.
Will this get us demonetized if we actually monetize this for playing this?
I don't think so.
I know because it's a commercial. It's a
radio ad.
Yeah, it's a radio ad. It's free advertisement. We're probably good. In fact, we should get monetized for putting this on.
Exactly. But it's the most ridiculous. Now, if it's not, I haven't fact checked to see for sure if it is Matthew McConaughey.
How about, you know what this is making me think of is
wait, here it is. Right. Here it is. This is hilarious to me. I don't know why.
I can't wait.
It's time to answer the call. The oozing drips and the smacking lips. Snizzle dizzle. Biggity wiggity buck wild beef busting straight out of the gate, showing his teeth like a flavor stampede. Crisp Eddie rings, taking it SLO with the Western bacon cheeseburger. That's the call of Carl's. Pick up.
I can't hang.
See, I wish Matthew McConaughey could just promote everything.
Have you heard those Del Taco commercials on the radio where that guy sounds like he's dying? He's like, Del Taco.
I don't think I have.
With the button under me. It's like he's supposed to be.
He kind of sounds like a grizzled cowboy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be he's supposed to have this real grizzled cowboy sound, but it's gone so far off the deep end that it sounds like his throat has been cut, and he's just trying to get this last commercial out before he dies.
He has a heart attack as he's filming it.
Yeah, and I mean, someone representing Del Taco as a career. I mean, yeah, they're probably not. They got one foot in the grave as it is.
I feel like more actors are doing that now. They're just kind of branching out and being like, "Hey, man, it's a paycheck.
Yeah, for sure.
I may as well."
This guy's living off bucking under menu items. It's like he's not long for this world.
Speaking of which, my taste, I got to admit, since I quit drinking, my taste for fast food has just completely gone out the window.
Bro, dude, I only eat fast food for convenience. And that's if and when I do eat it.
Right.
I had a couple I had a couple Carl's Jr. stops on the way here just because I was
now that's a good point, because if I am gonna have fast food, it would probably be if I was gonna get a burger from somewhere, it would probably be Carl's Jr.
Carl's Jr. is my favorite fast food place, if anywhere.
They're not too bad. I tried to eat Jack in the Box a year ago.
It's mega scum, dude.
It was the worst. So gross. Which is the weirdest thing, because when I was drunk, that would be the first thing I craved every time.
Sure, because it's the only thing that's fucking open.
Yeah. I think it was almost, though, it was this weird kind of drunk nostalgia.
Yeah.
Where I remember being a 14-year-old and just craving a pair of big cheeseburgers and some potato wedges or whatever.
Dude, I'm about that Western bacon cheeseburger all day.
But the Western bacon is,
it's just got all the things I need. It's got that.
It's loaded up.
Yeah, it's got the cheese. It's got the onion rings. We should be getting paid for this. Actually,
this is just totally morphed.
This is actually
morphed into a fast food podcast.
Dude, this is
reviewing fast food.
This is what Matthew McConaughey does to me. It's like if we watch that scene on fucking Wolf of Wall Street, I'll just be trying to sell all you people Coke right now.
Have you ever heard that little song that he does in Wolf of Wall Street? He made that up. That was his. What they said, what I read online was that when he does that and he starts beating his chest, they said that song Scorsese asked Matthew McConaughey to do it because that's what Matthew McConaughey would actually hum before his scenes to get pumped up for his scene.
Really? That's cool.
So that was actually his weird little song.
I heard nearly everything about that movie was improvisational.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. It was following like a general outline, but they basically shot all the scenes like, hey, just do the worst shit that you can do.
Right.
Do everything like be the gnarliest, most fucking dog shit people that you can be. And
well, what's really interesting about a movie like that is that, and I was kind of touched on this when I did a review the other day of this 1999 through the year 2000 TV series called Shasta McNasty.
I saw that, and I'd never watched that before. But
it's absolutely horrible. I made it through. I didn't even. I said I reviewed the whole series. I reviewed 4 episodes.
Yeah, well,
that's about as far as I could get. But
I'm sure that's all you need.
It made me.
Like that.
I wrote this in the review. It made me realize just how much the times have changed in the last 18 years since that show came out, and even in the short time since when did Wolf of Wall Street come out? 2012 or 11 or something like that. Whenever, but just like that brand of humor that used to exist is kind of gone. You can't really, everything is so politically correct now. You can't really do the same type of humor. No,
I was watching something from what was it that I caught a racist statement on a movie.
Right. Oh, when you see it all the time
from the 90s, and I was just shit, you just couldn't say that.
Right, and you see it all the time in these older movies, where it's very subtly. Yeah. It could be a PG or a PG-13.
Yeah, it was not a big deal. It was and you know what I noticed about it? I was like, oh, that's a white guy saying that. He can't.
Right.
They couldn't do that today.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing about this Shasta McNasty show is that each episode was pretty much dedicated to being as politically incorrect as possible. So they had one episode where the whole premise of the episode was Jake Busey's character. He hadn't had sex in a while, so they were trying to get him a woman. And they were like, yeah, you should just date fat chicks because everybody knows fat chicks are easy. They have low self-confidence. So the entire episode is just dedicated to them fat shaming this girl. And then Jake Busey helps her start exercising, but she starts to lose weight really fast. And he's worried that she'll get too much confidence and leave him. So then he starts replacing her Slim Fast shakes with Yoo-Hoos.
That's amazing.
He replaces her non-fat frozen yogurt with Dreyer's ice cream or something. Uh-huh. There was another episode where it's just dedicated to them making fun of Vern Troyer is in it, Mini-Me from Austin Powers. Yeah. And they're just cracking jokes at his expense the entire episode. What
was the dating on this show? What was it early 2000s?
It ran for one season from 1999 into the year 2000.
It's a perfect time, man.
Yeah. And it's weird because it made me.
How was the studio quality of it? Was it just super shitty?
No, it was pretty decent. It was standard. It was pretty standard 90s sitcom studio level.
Really?
You can tell they put it wasn't a laugh track sitcom, but it had a similar format to a sitcom.
Okay.
They put some money into this show because I actually remember.
Well, Jake Busey during that time frame, what was that? That was around the same time Tomcats came out.
Yeah, Tomcats.
That was a theater release.
Right. Yeah, that was a theater release. Tomcats, and then he was in Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers was my
I love
film.
Starship Troopers.
I love Starship Troopers.
One of the most underrated. Sci-fi movies.
It was the movie that my film class teacher would reference to not to do with anything.
Really?
He's like, if you do this, hated it that much? If you do this wrong, you know what you get? You get Starship Troopers.
That seems odd to me though, because Starship Troopers was
but it was intentionally made that way.
Yeah, it was a very self-aware movie. Yeah. I mean, the guy who directed it, Paul Verhoeven. He's the same guy who did RoboCop, I think, and he's kind of known for.
Oh yeah, it's totally that same RoboCop
I'll have to look
style.
It up. Yeah, I know for sure he did. He did actually. I don't know if it was RoboCop, but I know for sure he did Total Recall as well, which has a very similar kind of sci-fi, kind of self-aware. He directs in that style on purpose. And he's actually a really funny guy. There's this thing. If you guys haven't seen it, it's this thing on YouTube And it's Paul Verhoeven and Arnold Schwarzenegger doing DVD commentary for Total Recall. And it's hilarious because Arnold Schwarzenegger. First of all,
my favorite line I have to throw out there from Total Recall is where he's like, what's the guy's name that he's supposed to be on the movie? He's like,
Paul Verhoeven did do Starship Troopers and Total Recall, and he also did Showgirls.
Really?
What was the line?
He walks up and he's like, he sees all the security guards. He's like, I've got a plan. And he like walks up with a gun and he just goes,
he just shoots everybody.
You thought this was the real blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Looking at each other, he's all, it is. And he just shoots.
He goes, you thought this was the real McQuaid.
That's what it is, McQuaid. So that you thought this was the real McQuaid?
Yes, yeah. And he just kills everybody.
What? He's all, it is.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know Paul Verhoeven, he's just a really ridiculous guy. And paired with Arnold Schwarzenegger, this commentary is so funny. And there's a scene during the commentary where Arnold Schwarzenegger... There's a scene in Total Recall where the woman has like 3 breasts. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is talking about that scene. And he goes, and this right here, this is the woman. She had 3 breasts. I always thought that was so great, the way she had 3 breasts. And like the way Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about everything is so like... He's basically just repeating the movie to you. He's like, this is a scene right here where I beat up the 3 guys. Yes, I beat them up very good. I beat them up bad. And then there's a really, really funny one where Arnold Schwarzenegger is fighting Sharon Stone, his wife character in the movie. And she's like beating him up. So she punches Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then during the DVD commentary, Arnold Schwarzenegger goes, ow, that hurts. And then they him and Paul Verhoeven start talking about Sharon Stone. Paul Verhoeven also directed Basic Instinct, the famous movie where Sharon Stone shows the leg cross. Yeah, the little leg cross and shows a little crotch shot. And Paul Verhoeven, he directed that.
When what's the Leslie Nielsen movie Loaded Weapon, where it shows the girl doing that and you just see there's like a flash frame and it turns into just a beaver sitting there smoking a cigarette.
yes. So there's a scene in during this DVD commentary where they're talking about Paul Verhoeven and Arnold Schwarzenegger are talking about Basic Instinct, which he directed like 5 years after Total Recall, and Arnold's like, yes, you directed Sharon in a Basic Instinct, right? And he's like, yeah, she didn't want to get nude in Total Recall, so I think I got revenge for that when I filmed Basic Instinct. So he's kind of like suggesting that he pressured her into doing that scene, like guilted her into doing it because she didn't want to show any skin in Total Recall. But if you guys haven't heard that, look it up on YouTube. Paul Verhoeven, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall DVD commentary. It's like the funniest thing ever. And then also look up Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator 3 DVD, Rise of the Machines DVD commentary, which is also like equally hilarious.
Wait a minute.
Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, so
wait a minute. So Arnold Schwarzenegger did commentary for
Terminator Rise of the Machines, and there's a part where he goes back to the breasts again. And you know the scene
he's still talking about breasts.
He's still talking about breasts.
Movie to movie.
And you know the scene in Terminator 3 where it's when the new cop, I can't remember what she was, like the T-2000 or whatever. She's the updated Terminator model.
Yeah.
She was the female Terminator.
I remember. She wasn't like the nanobots like the T-1000. She was like a mix of both. Again, but she had like the nanobots.
Yeah. So
she didn't have the weakness of the nanobots.
No. And there was a scene where she gets pulled over by a cop and she's like flat chested and she uses her Terminator powers to make her boobs bigger and she gets herself out of her ticket.
Yeah.
And then Arnold goes, and you'll see this scene right here. This is where she takes the breasts and she makes them bigger. And I always thought this was a good scene, because some guys like little breasts, some guys like small breasts, and I think why can't you have both? It was like the perfect, like, to me that pretty much summed up Arnold Schwarzenegger's philosophy on life.
Yeah, right.
In just one sentence.
What else?
Why can't you have
need?
both?
Why can't you have both? Some guys like little breasts, some guys like big breasts.
That's probably was his reasoning when he was having an affair on Maria Shriver with the nanny. He was like, I really like Maria. She's a nice-looking American white woman. But I like Latin women as well. Can I just have sex with the nanny? Speaking of which, have you seen his son from that nanny? It looks like a Brazilian Arnold Schwarzenegger. This kid looks ridiculous.
I feel like I have. I can't remember. I need to check it out. That's a funny idea.
His name is like Joseph Branag or something like that. But he looks like a big giant. He's like the same height as Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe taller, except for his spitting image looks just like him, but he's got dark skin. Like he looks like a Hispanic Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. And they have all these like videos and pictures of him like working out with Arnold in the gym.
Where the fuck did that bucket come from, man? Has that always been there? I didn't know about that thing until you just kicked it right now.
There was a bucket that just got kicked.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have all these videos of Arnold Schwarzenegger working out in the gym with his son, like working out at Gold's Gym, teaching him how to lift weights and stuff.
It's awesome. Just
his formerly illegitimate child.
Yeah, but we're just gonna accept that he exists now. His Latin son.
His Latin son.
Oh man.
He just had a heart attack. Arnold Schwarzenegger did. Or he had an emergency heart surgery, they said. And then according to his agent, when he came out of surgery, the first thing he said was, "I'm back." Which I found kind of hard to believe. But then after you listen to the Arnold Schwarzenegger DVD commentary, I could very easily see him saying that.
He's such a character, man. Like, he might really be the guy from Last Action Hero. I think could be who he is.
Yeah, he was like my fucking hero growing up.
Dude,
I loved Arnold.
Yeah.
I remember I would watch, and I would never want my real dad to hear this. Sorry, Dad. I would watch Terminator 2, and I would imagine in my head that I was Edward Furlong, and he was like my dad. I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger so much.
We all we grew up in a really interesting era for movies. Like I feel like we grew up in the action movie era.
Yeah, totally. It was like the golden age.
It was like the golden age for action movies. Like nowadays, we have better, I don't know, technology, and we have better writing to make more serious action movies with. But we had this frivolous, let loose style of action movies. Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell,
and they were
fucking
Nick Cage,
Nicolas Cage. You ever seen Virtuosity?
Cruise.
That shit was a real movie.
Well, and the thing is, like, movies back then were marketed differently. Like now, it's all about you're really marketing the title of the movie, the brand, sometimes even the director. Right. Whereas back then, it was all about the actor. Right, you're going to pay to go see the new Stallone movie or the new
Tango
Schwarzenegger.
And Cash,
right?
Dude, and that shit wasn't serious. We weren't expecting it to be serious. It was just. Like, we're going to see some action. Some shit's going to blow up. Some people are going to fight. There's probably going to be a prison break. This is going to be fucking dope. And, I don't know. We don't really get a lot of release for that kind of, like, mindless movie. Not with big actors anymore. No. Not with people who, like, you want to see in those movies.
No. Well, this is, like, the superhero era now.
Which I'm cool with.
Gears. I'm totally fine with. This is, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, this is, like the state of action movies right now, with it just being saturated with superhero movies, like this was like my wet dream as a teenager.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Because I was obsessed with all these characters, and I had my little account at the comic book shop that I would go in every Wednesday and get my new comics, and like I couldn't imagine.
I still am like that. Like I'm. Even when I know they're gonna suck, even when I expect them to suck, I'm gonna watch every superhero movie that comes out.
Yeah, I always watch it no matter what. Yeah.
I hear some people talk about, like, I'm kind of over it. And I'm like, I can see that, but I'm not. I'm not gonna be.
No, and here's the way I see it. Look, for me, no matter how much I like most superheroes, to me, or superhero movies, they're kind of like it's like almost like, I look at it like an amusement park ride. Like, I don't really watch them on repeat that many times, but I just love going to go see them right when they come out. And dude, that new Avengers Infinity War trailer, like, I got like tingles. Yeah, dude. I was so excited.
Well, first of all, I'm so excited about that, but also I've been wanting to bring this up for a while now, and I keep
forgetting as my moment comes up is your dick as hard as mine for Tom Hardy as Venom. Like,
yeah, that's a pretty perfect casting.
I don't think that can fucking miss.
No, that's really good. Like, it's really, really good. And we'll see though, but because that one is not done by Marvel, that is a Fox movie, so it can't. There's a possibility it could miss. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I should pay more attention to that. But it's Tom Hardy, dude.
But it is Tom Hardy, yeah, and I love Tom Hardy. So that Avengers Infinity War trailer, how proud were you when you saw our son taking the gauntlet, taking the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos, our son, Captain America?
Oh, yeah.
Holding it. In case you guys don't know.
Little Matthew Cutrone.
Matthew Cutrone, a.k.a. the actor who plays Captain America, Chris Evans. If you guys haven't seen it before, look him up. He looks like a perfect composite mix of me and Keith. Like, they created him in a lab.
Specifically the Gucci picture.
Specifically his Gucci modeling ad. If you guys haven't seen
it's like they spliced our faces together.
Yes, and they made just a perfect human being.
Perfect specimen. Matt Lovato's abs and, our fused face.
Yes, it's a
it
thing
sounds
of
like
wonder.
a horrible amalgamation, like some creature in a sci-fi movie, like The Fly 2 or something. It's just gonna melt away and die in horrible pain, but it's actually quite beautiful.
Speaking of which, The Fly is such a fucked up movie.
Which one, The Fly 1 or 2?
I'm talking about The Fly, the one with Goldblum, like the remake they did. I watched it for the first time. I always make it a point to watch. I saw it when I was really young.
Okay.
And then I watched it for the first time again on like Halloween last year.
Super sad, fucked up movie.
It is. It's almost so brutal.
Yeah, dude. It's almost not even like. It's almost not scary. It's just
it's just sad,
man.
It's just really fucking sad.
Like it's that guy just he's on that. That's how the Brave New World, New Frontiers crossing. Right. That shit can go wrong, man.
Yeah. And I watched that movie, like I said, last Halloween I watched it. I was just kind of laying in bed watching it on my iPad with my headphones in, and Ariana didn't know what I was watching, so I just finished it, and I just laid there for probably like a minute, and I didn't say anything, and I was like, that movie was fucked up. That's all I said.
Poor Jeff Goldblum.
I was like, she's like, what? And I was like, I don't even want to talk about it. You wouldn't even want to see it.
Tell me you've seen The Fly 2.
I haven't seen The Fly 2.
It's so good. You've got to watch it.
Who's in The Fly 2?
Playing. I can't remember his fucking name. He's that. He's kind of like that red-haired guy. He was pretty big in the 90s.
Red-haired guy, pretty big in the 90s. Erick Stolts?
Let me look him up. That could be it.
Does he have red hair? Erick Stolts? He almost played Marty McFly.
He honestly might not be. He might not even be red-haired. I have this weird thing with my memory where I sometimes remember people with the wrong color hair. I don't know.
Like categorize them.
Yeah, like exactly. Like I try to categorize them, and I remember the wrong color hair. It's very strange, but it's a real thing. There's probably like a condition for it and everything. I'm gonna IMDb this real quick and find out who this guy is.
Yeah, I definitely want to see The Fly too.
Dude, I recommend it. It's really good. It's actually, I'm not playing. It's very Erick Stolts. Yeah, you're right.
Damn, I can't believe I got that.
That was fucking great.
That's pretty good.
I'm really impressed. Yeah, I think he's
like the only. I think it's just because he's like the only kind of redheaded dude from the '90s that I could even think of.
IMDb gave it a 4.9 out of 10. I'm not playing. It's better than that. Like it's But go into it knowing what you're going into. You are going into The Fly 2.
Right.
It's going to be kind of out there. It's too much, but it's very, very, very violent. It's very intense. There's a lot of crazy shit that happens in that movie. And for somebody who has like a wide palette for movies, like enjoy a lot of different types of things, that movie's going to have something for you. I assure you.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. Along that genre type of The Fly. It's a gnarly movie. There's a lot of gene splicing.
Gene splicing, like, it's funny because it's one of those things where, like, anytime you see it in a movie, you're like, yep, this isn't going to go well.
So
have you ever seen a movie where gene splicing goes well? It's never good. And now they're
Leprechaun 4 in space.
Yes.
He's like, blending up spiders, and he's
Right.
like takes a big like beaker. He's like DNA, pours the DNA.
You know what's funny too is now they're actually gene splicing in real life, which is crazy.
Sure. Which, you know, I'm sure they're a lot more careful about than they were in The Fly 2.
Yeah, and Leprechaun 4. I was always personally, my favorite of all the Leprechauns was
Back to the Hood?
probably Leprechaun Back to the Hood. I liked when he stabbed the dude with the bong. I always thought that was a really solid scene. I think the scariest of all the Leprechauns was probably number 2, though, where he's in Vegas. I think that was number 2. Leprechaun in Las Vegas.
Probably. I don't know.
All I remember about that movie is there was a scene where he pogo sticks a guy to death, which I thought was a pretty creative way to do it. And then there was a scene where he took a magician and he cut him in half with a chainsaw, which I also thought was good.
Yeah, that's a. I think there's an art to horror movies and slasher movies that I think a lot of people they lose in the translation of viewing it. They just go, this is like blood porn, you know, garbage.
Right.
It's just like blah blah blah. It's all washed out. But like when I watch horror movies, I really am legitimately looking for the creativity in the ways that they set up the kills, the ways that they make it scary.
Absolutely, that's the funnest part.
There are details that you have to allow yourself to enjoy about it. I watched this one movie that had the best like make you jump scene. Terrible movie, nothing else that it had going for it, but it had the best make you jump like shot that I've seen. It was called like Ghost Month. It was like a half American, half Japanese movie. Didn't make any fucking sense. It was terrible. But there's this one scene where this girl's in a fucking library and somebody says something and she like turns around and there's this fucking ghost there. It's like, bah! And it's like fucking made me fucking jump. That shit was good.
Yeah, good jump scare is like that's there's nothing quite like that.
There's this movie called Frayed, F-R-A-Y-E-D, and there's a scene in the beginning where there's like a camera rolling and you're watching it from this like home camcorder, and I don't remember, it was a while since I've seen it, but this kid like beats the shit out of his mom with a baseball bat, just beats her to death. Has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
That's
absolutely terrible movie.
Just a kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's an absolutely terrible movie. Otherwise, doesn't have anything like scary in it. But this is the most realistic beating I've ever seen on a movie. With this guy, this kid beats his mom to death with a baseball bat for the opening scene, and it's like there's a fucking art to what they just did there, because this is like this isn't even a B class movie. This is like an F class movie.
Right.
Like,
right.
And this one scene is so goddamn realistic that it's like blowing my mind. I've watched
like
it
one of those
multiple times.
Well, sometimes you'll see those scenes.
It's not pleasant to watch.
That's what I was
either.
going to say. Sometimes you'll see those scenes in certain horror movies where, like it just churns your stomach, and you're like, oh, I don't. This is like fuck.
Yeah. My point is that there's an art to it. There's something to be seen and appreciated about that.
Absolutely. There, have you ever seen? I remember there was this movie, we used to have it on VHS when I was a really little kid, and I always thought it was really disturbing. It was called Mikey. Did you ever see Mikey?
Mikey, I saw.
It's
Mikey.
about this
Which
like
one is that?
It's about this like little like 8-year-old kid who goes on like a rampage and like kills his families.
You're talking about Milo?
No, Mikey.
Okay, Milo's another one that's like that little kid in a raincoat. Like...
Okay, no, this is different because he doesn't wear a raincoat. He's just like this asshole little kid. His babysitter is like, I can't remember if it was a babysitter or his sister, but she's like in the hot tub with her boyfriend, and he kills them by dropping a boombox in it. Yeah, he just electrocutes a lot of people. I think. I think he tries to kill his mom with a slingshot or something like that. Like, it's just a really horrible movie, and I guess they banned it in a bunch of other countries, and they rated it. I think they rated it X. It actually starred the kid from Blank Check. He was that same kid.
He was Mikey?
He was Mikey. He was
awesome.
like maybe a year or two younger.
Kid from Blank Check.
Which really interesting. I don't know why this popped into my head. You remember the movie First Kid?
Yeah.
With Sinbad?
Yeah.
Okay, the kid.
How could I forget, dude?
Yeah. So
who's bad? Sinbad.
Sinbad. So the kid who stars in that movie, Every time I watch one of those obscure like 90s movies with a child actor, I always have to go and see like what is this kid up to now? You know?
Right. You gotta go check out what they're at. In life.
Turns out that kid is like a multi fucking billionaire, and he's like the CEO of all these like tech, some kind of big like tech company. He's like a really big deal in the tech world.
That's
that kid.
super funny, man.
I just thought that was so random. But it turns out that the kid from Blank Check and Mikey ended up being a total shithead, and he got arrested a bunch of times, and like he's just not a good kid. So I just thought it was interesting how they were two total opposite ends of the coin.
I wanted to point this out because this is an interesting fact. That other movie Milo that I brought up, that's very similar to Mikey in a lot of ways. It's a shitty little like 8-year-old kid walking around killing everybody, and like for some reason he stays a little kid over the years, like all the other kids in his class grow up and he's still like an 8-year-old murderer. So that movie had what's her fucking name from that 70s show,
Laura Prepon?
Mila Kunis. So Mila Kunis is in that. And I'd like to point out how for a long time there was a story going around that Mila Kunis was like from Russia, and she didn't speak English, and she was learning English on the set of that 70s show. Do you remember when that?
Yes, I remember that. I think she was on like Howard Stern, and she talked about that.
Yeah. Well, on this movie Milo, this was like 1990, and she was
speaking
English as a little kid.
What a weirdo!
Why would she make that shit up?
I for sure heard her on Howard Stern say that.
For sure, that story got out, and that shit was being said, and that shit was a lie because she was there, little 10-year-old Mila Kunis. She's on the credits, and she's speaking English.
That's really odd.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe it was part of like a marketing scheme.
Sure. Why not? But that's like, it's a crazy thing to think no one's gonna catch that shit. Like that's real as fuck right there, man.
Yeah. Wow.
That's on her IMDb and everything, dude. You can look it up. It's
very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know where they get off like making that story.
You lied to me about Mila Kunis' background.
Guess what? I know all about it, Mila.
Not hiding anything.
Shut up, Meg.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, but that was that was very interesting to me. Terrible movie, unwatchable. Absolutely, no redeeming qualities to the movie Milo aside from that interesting little piece of trivia.
If you just want to see Mila Kunis speak English at a young age, Milo's your movie.
Yeah, Milo's your movie for that. So, I'm really interested in this whole Matt Reviews Media thing that you got going on. I think that's very cool. I like that that came out. Actually, like, that was part of the reason when I saw you doing that I wanted to get together to do a podcast. I thought it'd be a very interesting thing to talk about. Because I think that's something that we both have in common. Is we have a very analytical viewpoint on the media things.
Definitely,
that we watch.
And well, I really just started doing it because every time, like I said earlier, every time I would go to see a movie with my wife, I think pretty much just annoy the shit out of her because I would just be talking about it nonstop and she would like not want to hear it.
Right.
So I was like, maybe if I just make a media page for this and like review it, that'll kind of get it out of my system, and I won't bug her with it.
Yeah, it's a perfect outlet.
Exactly. And it kind of forces me to. I feel like because how we were talking about earlier, how you can kind of go into that rabbit hole where you're just watching a bunch of stupid YouTube videos all day. If I have a media page where I need to review things, it'll at least kind of force me to consume better quality product.
I don't think it forces you to consume better quality product, but it forces you to be engaged.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. It forces me to engage a little more.
So when you can still watch that garbage, but you're engaging because you're taking it apart and you're looking at it and being like, all right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's definitely a big part of it. And when I first started doing it, I didn't really know. I mean, I've only been doing it for about like a month now, but I didn't really know like what I wanted to review or what I was going to review, and I was like, well, whatever, it's my page, I'll just review whatever I want. So I'll just do mix of comics and TV shows and whatever. And then I kind of as I've gone along, that's basically what I've done. I've reviewed some comic books, some graphic novels. I've reviewed some I've reviewed kind of a mix of some some actual genuine movies that I like Oscar type movies, but then I'll also do like really just stupid movies that from when I was younger.
Oh yeah,
that, you know,
I'll occasionally like I'll like scope your page and I'll see some things. I'll see some random stuff. Like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's always fun too. Yeah. Like when you like, I always think it's really interesting. I was talking to Capato the other day, and I was telling him how. So there's this movie I reviewed called Step Monster that's like super obscure.
Step Monster, yeah.
And it's like such an obscure movie. And then he was like, "Damn, that's a deep cut right there." And I was like, I wish I would have included this in my review, but I didn't. But what I told him, I was like, Step Monster is the type of movie that's so obscure that it feels like it was only released in your city, in your area code, like on your block. Like it wasn't released anywhere else.
You're the only person who ever saw it. Yeah.
It was just released on your block specifically for you. Like nobody else saw it. Like that's always interesting to me. And it's what's interesting to me about those movies too is because they're not as mainstream and they're not in the main, you know, pop culture like streamline. You're not reminded of them. So when you finally go back and see them, you just like have a skewed perception of them. Like you remember them different almost from when you were a kid.
For sure. No. I experienced that a lot.
Yeah.
Like when I watch movies, when I rewatch as an adult, it's like, which I mean everybody does. It's,
right.
It's obvious in your brain changes. We're saturated with more modern cinematic types. Like when we watch things now that are made with today's cinematic techniques, and we go back and we watch something that's old, we're like, oh man, what the fuck is up with this dog shit?
Right, yeah.
It's really crazy when you watch something that holds up. That's what trips me out.
Yes.
It's like,
that's
watch Jurassic Park. That shit'll blow your mind.
Right.
It's like 1991 when that came out or something.
There's
and
a few good examples of that, like Jurassic Park, Terminator 2.
Yeah,
like
it's
amazing.
Shit's still good. Like
it's pretty amazing. It makes you realize how far ahead of their time those movies were. Speaking of which, with the Jurassic Park, you gotta see Ready Player One. Like I cannot.
Is it good?
Yeah, I can't see you not loving that movie because it is full of every pop culture reference you can imagine.
Right.
Like I wrote a review on it the other day, and I wasn't like super interested in seeing it because I wasn't really like familiar with the source material or anything.
To be honest, like what I see as someone who hasn't seen it yet, it's like I'm not that interested in a movie that's just about reliving all kinds of other movies. It has its own like
it has
agenda.
It has its own agenda. It does have some it does kind of have some very kind of generalized like traditional themes, I guess you could say. It's almost like a digital like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But it's just so cool because it has so many like I can't even tell you like they have like Akira, the Kaneda's bike from Akira, like racing the DeLorean, and as they're racing, racing each other, you've got a fucking the T-Rex from Jurassic Park that does the exact same roar, and King Kong chasing them. Like you've got
that's cool.
There's. So you have and these aren't like spoilers; they're just quick little tidbits. Right. There's a scene in the movie where you have Goro from Mortal Kombat and then the chest burster from Alien coming out of Goro's chest. Okay. They have, for the first time ever, a full-size Gundam on the big screen battling a Mecha Godzilla. Like, so it's really fucking cool.
It's so much more diverse than I expected. All right.
Dude, it's got everything. I thought it
was mostly like, what's his name? Director.
Steven Spielberg.
See, I thought it was mostly going to be just Steven Spielberg things.
No. They go into like everything. It's like everything that he's ever been a fan of, like in one movie.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And like, it's so cool when the Gundam comes out, and like you just hear you remember.
Speaking of Kaneda's bike, though, I want to tell you about this real quick. Yeah. Have you seen the like? I don't know if it's like a 5-10 minute like trailer that fan thing that those people did about doing like a live action Akira.
I feel like I have. When did it come out?
I think it came out in like 2010 or something.
I think I did see it, but I only saw it. I vaguely remember it.
It was super tight. I was so bummed that they didn't make a real movie because it looked fucking amazing.
Well, dude, that would be so like I would love if they could do that into a big but I would almost be worried that it would have kind of like the like a Watchmen effect where
people wouldn't get it if they hadn't seen the anime first.
Like it has potential to be a bummer too.
Dude, I kind of thought that's what was gonna happen. Like when I was watching the trailers for Chronicle, like when I didn't really know what it was like about yet, but I saw like the one guy, he's coming out of the hospital all fucked up, and he's like blowing shit up with his mind. He's like, bah! Like,
yeah, it kind of it definitely did take elements of Akira for sure.
For sure,
like,
that movie
heavily
took,
influenced.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing too, is like,
and it was almost like the guy who fought him in the end, his buddy, was almost like that Kaneda character, who was like kind of cooler, accepted in society, more of like. You know, and he's just like trying to help out his dumb shit friend who's like kind of a bitch who's got powers all of a sudden.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's just like it, and that's what's really interesting too. Is I feel like people don't realize is like I don't think there's one genre of storytelling that has been like copycatted more than anime, but hasn't been directly adapted.
People want to hate anime. I have this conversation with people all the time where it's like. I tell them, like, please understand that anime is just a medium. It's like, like the fact that it is an anime doesn't mean that it's going to be one thing.
Right,
or another.
yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I tell people all the time, too, because most anime that I watch, I don't even like. But the anime that I watch that I do like, I really like.
Yeah, it's like, it's like one of my favorite things in the world when it's something I like.
Yeah.
Ninja Scroll and Cowboy Bebop. See what else?
Akira, of course.
Akira,
about. The original Ghost in the Shell.
You know, I haven't watched that yet. I've been meaning to forever, but
you'd like that.
Yeah, I think I would. Let's see what.
Can't forget Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z, of course. Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yu Yu Hakusho. I used to love that too.
Dude, every once in a while, I'll throw on an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yu Yu Hakusho was good. Like, I loved the original. I loved the original Gundam even.
I've been meaning to watch that too.
It might be different. When I watched it, I was like a little kid, so it came out like in the 70s, so it's probably pretty aged now. But did you ever watch Lupin the Third?
That's another one. I've seen episodes of it, but I've been meaning to actually go back and watch it as an adult.
Yeah, it's funny because it's kind of like a weird. He's just like a total pervert. He's almost like a weird.
He's like a private detective, right?
He's a private detective, and you see, there's a lot of actually in Cowboy Bebop. There's a lot of Lupin the Third influence in there.
I've been meaning to watch that movie. What is it? It's like the Death of Evangelion or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's supposed to be like one of the greatest works of anime.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've ever even really sat down and like really like watched every episode of Evangelion. But I always really appreciated the.
I'm not a big fan of big robots.
Big robots, yeah.
So, but I can appreciate if it's really good. I can appreciate.
That's what I was gonna say. The same here. Like the only one that I was ever real big fan of was Gundam.
Yeah,
and not even. I didn't care for like Gundam Wing. There's a certain storyline within Gundam called like Universal Century where they follow this particular. It's more like they're following like a war. It's like a combat themed thing. Whereas all the other Gundams kind of revolved around like they were more cheesy. Like they would revolve around like these. I don't know. It was just different. It's kind of hard to explain. But
about Big O.
Big O. Oh, man. Did you like Big O? I thought Big O was terrible.
Big O was the worst.
Yeah.
It looked so
it was really,
dumb.
Really stupid.
Dude, how retarded did that robot look?
Yeah.
Big O!
I thought that was the worst fucking... I always wondered, too, like, how did this one end up on...
Toonami?
Yeah.
Dude, Toonami was tight. You ever go back and watch those Toonami
I just watched one the other day. The trailer.
So
those trailers were like... Yeah, those were like works of art. Those were good.
The Dragon Ball Z ones get me pumped.
Yeah.
I'll watch that before I train sometimes.
Well, and they were so like those were so they did such a good job of making you feel like because like for anime is so popular now, but like back in the 90s growing up, anime felt like this kind of secret thing.
Yeah.
It felt like this thing that if you knew about it was like...
Yeah, you had to go, like, get VHS tapes from like, the weird part of the store. It was like, there's the porn section, there's the anime section.
There's anime.
Sometimes the anime section was, like, bled into the porn
Yeah,
section
always.
a little bit, like, yeah.
And then you would have to, like, go, like, if you wanted to know more about that type of, like, that anime, you'd have to go online and find some really obscure
Back in dial-up days,
webpage.
too, when it wasn't, like, easy to just go online and do shit. You had to, like, turn your entire house's, like, phone lines off and everything.
And then if somebody would call, they would get rid of your connection, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, and I'm on these web pages. I'm on web crawlers searching, like, anime shit.
Yep.
Toonami really brought that together a lot. Like,
they did. Yeah. They did a really good job of importing because that was the first real. Even before Toonami, I remember Sci-Fi Channel did it. Do you remember that?
No.
Sci-Fi Channel used to have this thing. It was like Saturday night anime or something.
I think you're right. Yeah. And on Saturday nights, Friday and Saturday nights, we had pizza and we'd rent movies.
Right.
So I didn't watch anything on TV.
Well, and they would do more obscure stuff. Like I remember the first anime I ever saw was on Sci-Fi Channel when I was like 7 years old, and I remember it was called Iria, and it's just kind of a weird obscure anime, but. It was. I remember when I first saw it. It was the strangest thing to me because I remember they cussed a little bit, not a lot. There was some blood, and then I remember the girl had like huge boobs, and I was like, "What the fuck kind of cartoon is this? Like, what is this? This is like." It was crazy to me.
Did you ever see the 45-minute Baki the Grappler OVA?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that was the first anime.
Or you know what? I think you might have showed me that one time.
It's great.
I'm pretty sure you and Tony showed me that. And it's the one where he like
where he kicks the guy's shoulder out at the karate.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. You did. You guys did show me that.
Yeah, then he fights the cord cutter guy.
Yes. Like, he has like a different villains that he goes at it with.
On that one, it's only those two that he fights.
Right. Okay.
It's like deep into the Baki story where he's already champion in the arena. That was the first one I ever saw. Like I watched that with my dad. My dad is very like anti-cartoon, so like for some reason he was just like, so Grappler Baki, the Ultimate Fighter. It's like he knew I was really into fighting stuff. I was like a little kid. He's all, the Ultimate Fighter. Let's check it out. We watched it, and it was like I fucking loved it. I don't know what my dad thought about it. I was just like garbage. I was like, this shit's fucking tight. I ended up. Have you watched the show, Baki the Grappler?
The only thing I've seen of it is what you guys showed me.
Dude, I highly recommend it. I used to train with this dude Johnny. In his garage, and he would always be playing anime, and that's where I started watching Baki the Grappler, and it's super cool, dude.
Did Baki do any actual grappling though? Because from what I remember, you guys showing me, didn't he mostly just like beat the shit out of guys with strikes?
Yeah, he was mostly a striker.
They called him the grappler, but he was a striker.
Yeah, like they talk about it like the art of grappling is to be the best.
Just like in like
fighting,
just like in Street Fighter, Dalsim is a martial arts master of yoga.
Yeah, right.
Like yoga is a fucking martial art.
Stretching his arms. I was like,
it just shows how like little people understood martial arts back then.
True, but actually, what's really cool about Baki the Grappler is it touches on real martial arts like a lot. Like it goes into like old school Japanese jiu-jitsu. It goes into like different types of kung fu, and it's like they talk about Chinese boxing. There's this guy who talks like that, and he's the Chinese boxer. He's like, my martial arts style has gone back 50,000 years. How can you hope to compare your fighting style? It's only been around for 100 years.
I like how too, like people like you still will get that sometimes. Or I'll be talking to somebody, and they'll talk about like, you know, like it's almost like they'll have this idea that the older martial art is, the better. It's like, no, it probably is not as good.
It's probably
horrible.
It's probably worse.
I think that goes with most anything. Like even like when we go to do these like hot yoga classes and stuff, and we had this instructor the other day, and she goes, "There's this pose that they do called they just call it like wild thing." She's like, no, I want everybody to go into the Wild Thing pose. And then she goes, but it's actually not called Wild Thing. It's something that really bothers me. It's actually called an opening of the bleeding sacred heart, or like some like ridiculous. It's like, who gives? It's a stretch. Who cares what you fucking call it?
Put yourself in Wild Thing.
You're telling me that that just because that term that they used to describe it 2,000 years ago, that they made up, is somehow better than the term that they made up a few years ago? Like, who cares?
It doesn't make it better. It's just
like I hate when they get into the mumbo jumbo. It's like, just tell me what it's stretching, tell me how to do it, and then I'm happy. I don't need to know the philosophical terms behind it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. That's a really good point to take that from like the kung fu thing.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's super old, but that doesn't mean that like who cares what you call it? I'm not really focusing my chi. Maybe I am. I don't know, but like I do that in other ways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, man, I recommend it. I think there's a lot of fun things you would get out of Baki the Grappler. It's weird how it's full of actual martial arts information and knowledge stacked on top of silly, over dramatized anime stylistics, and it's a lot of fun to watch. But overall, what I really like about it is like it's this guy's fucking journey to become the best martial artist in the world because he wants to beat up his dad.
Well, hey, that's the story of any fighter, of any great fighter. He's just on a constant quest to beat up his father.
It's super funny. Like his dad is basically just like he's Yujiro. He's Yujiro Hanma. And he's
just like a major asshole.
He's a major asshole. It's like he's like invincible. He's just like this big red-haired monster who's like, they call him the ogre, and he's like,
wow.
And he goes like, he's the best martial artist in the world. He's got like the number one Muay Thai fighter in the world like fighting him. He's just like fighting him with his finger and shit. He's in like Vietnam, like breaking people's necks. He's like guns going off and shit.
He doesn't need a gun.
Dude, he's just like...
He's like MacGruber who just rips out throats.
Straight up MacGruber, just ripping throats out. Exactly, dude. Like, it's super funny. Like, he's just this, like, hardcore dude. And, like, and he bangs fucking Baki's mom. And he's like, you will bear me a son. And he will be the greatest fighter. It's so intense. It's so ridiculous. You love it, dude.
I'll have to do a Matt Reviews Media on it.
Oh fuck yeah, that would be awesome.
That's what I should do.
Yeah, that's a good one for a Matt Reviews Media.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a hard center line with your like between good and bad, because it's got a lot of cool shit in it, and it's got a lot of really dumb shit in it.
I think that's the best. When it comes to especially like martial arts type stuff in media, that's it kind of goes full circle to back when we started talking about Never Back Down too.
Right.
I think in order to have a great martial arts movie or a great martial arts cartoon or anime or whatever it is, there's also got to be some silliness peppered in. Like look at like Kill Bill, or like look at it's almost always. There's got to be some fantastical stuff.
Again, a lot like how we were talking about the bringing it full circle again. Book of Five Rings, the samurai practicing soft art. When you're really submerged in that theme of violence and hardness, there's got to be something to balance it out.
Right. You
can't be completely submerged in that topic of hardcore action,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see, what time are we at right now? We're at about 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's 1 o'clock.
I gotta work in a half hour.
Work in a half an hour, and I gotta meet up with my family. We're doing lunch, so we gotta wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us today. I think this has been a lot of fun. I hope we can get together and do this.
Yes.
This again soon. I want to thank my sponsors, but I don't have any. So
I want to thank my sponsors, Matt Reviews Media. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's throw this one out there. Check out Matt Reviews Media. Matt Lovato. What is it? It's Intrinsic.
Intrinsic Resistance is my exercise fitness page.
Okay. Yeah, have a look at Matt Lovato's Intrinsic Resistance fitness page, and for some laughs and some good advice on funny things to watch, check out his Matt Reviews Media page. You can catch me on Bone Cutrone for my Instagram. It's got all my updates on upcoming fights, what's going on with my training. That'll also have links to my fighter fan page. We'll have a little bit more information. Thanks again for joining us, you guys. We're out.